everyone in the gallery and anyone who's watching on the live stream. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the region which we meet, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and their descendants. Item 2 is the disclaimer. The terms and conditions of entry to this meeting are posted at the entry of the public gallery. Members of the public are advised to read them prior to entering this meeting. And as always, if anyone's making any deputations or asking questions, I'd ask they please keep their comments respectful to the councillors and other community members. Item 3, attendance and apologies. Most councillors are here. Councillor Podovnik is attending electronically, and she has given her assurance that she is using a secure password protected internet connection, that she is in a quiet room which is private, and she's in a room suitable for controls to ensure confidentiality is not breached. Councillor Patty Jones is on a leave of absence. I'd also like to welcome 2 new faces to the chamber tonight. So a warm City of Swan welcome to newly elected Altone Ward Councillor, Councillor Jagdeep Singh. Welcome and congratulations, Jagdeep. And there will be a ceremonial swearing in next Wednesday at the ordinary council meeting for Councillor Singh and his family to attend. Thank you. Also, new to the city is our new CEO, Mr. Stephen Kane, to my immediate right. Welcome, Stephen. Thank you. And also thanks to the departure soon of our temporary CEO over the last few months, Mr. Cliff Fruing. Thank you, Cliff. That takes us to item 4, councillors, declarations of any financial proximity, interest or interest affecting impartiality. Are there any councillors? None. Takes us to item 5, public question times and questions relating to reports contained in the agenda. And item 5.1, questions of which notice had been given, there were nil. And item 5.2, questions without notice. Is there anyone in the public gallery who wish to ask questions on the agenda? Thank you. Mrs. Irwin, thank you. Come forward and ask your question.
Thank you and welcome to those new people on council. Great to see you. My name is Francesca Irwin. My question is with reference to C1.2, Councillor Johnson's revocation motion for the Midland Oval development. For the period between the 2nd of November and today, the 7th of December, that being the period between when the community came aware of the council's vote to return to the MORM, would the council please advise how many letters and emails have been received by the council regarding the motion from various community groups and or individuals, and please advise how many of these have supported the pause on the MORM until a further review is undertaken?
If you want an exact answer, I'll have to take it on notice. I know there's been a number, but I think in fairness to yourself and myself, if I'll take that on answer and I'll have staff to investigate and have that answer for you next week.
Excellent. You haven't got a rough idea?
Numerous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano.
Could that also be given to staff, to councillors, that figure?
Well, it'll be part of the public record.
No, but what I'm asking
once
is,
the staff have investigated, it will go out to all councillors and obviously back.
Thank you. So councillors receive that before next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mrs. Irwin. I'll ask again, are there any other members of the public who wish to ask a question without notice on any item on the agenda? Thank you. Being no further questions, we go to item 6, reports and notices of motion. Councillors, you would have been advised today there are 2 new reports that have been sent out today to do with the recommendations from the Events and Public Relations Committee. That committee has no powers of delegation. So obviously, if you can read those agenda items, we'll have to make a decision next week. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can either contact myself, I was the chair of that meeting, or Muriel, who's the executive manager for that meeting. Thank you. Item 6.1, additional information from officers, is just those two new reports that have been circulated, which takes us to item 6.2, deputations. In accordance with the current procedures for public deputations of agenda forums, all requests for in-person deputations as admissions and written deputations were required by 10 a.m. Wednesday, the 7th of December, and all written deputations were received by 3 p.m. the 6th of December, were circulated with the preliminary agenda run sheet last evening. Takes us to part A, and the first item is item 13.3, proposed demolition of a single house and removal of native vegetation on two replacement single houses at number 7 Fauntleroy Street in Guildford. It's on, I haven't got a page number, but there's an in-person deputation, and the first one is from Mr. Cameron Leckie, Director of Rise Urban, in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Leckie. You have 5 minutes, and I'll try to let you know when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just start by clarifying that despite the title of the report, we are no longer proposing to remove any native vegetation from the site, and that the proposal includes its full retention. So we're keeping every single native tree on the site. Since the council's previous decision to defer the application back in April, we've been working to address all of those reasons for deferral, as well as to respond to the brand new Guildford Mandoon Heritage Area Local Planning Policy, which was adopted in October. The new policy quite rightly sets out very limited circumstances where demolition of a contributory building in the heritage precinct will be supported by the city. These circumstances are limited to instances where a building has been assessed to be structurally irredeemable based on the assessment of a qualified structural engineer with heritage expertise, and that assessment is supported by a heritage impact statement by a qualified heritage architect. In response to this policy requirement, the landowner has commissioned a structural condition report prepared by Coyne Consulting, who's an experienced structural engineer specialising predominantly in assessment of heritage buildings. The report concludes that structural elements of the building are significantly degraded due to prolonged termite damage over many years, and that if the dwelling is to be retained, then the following structural works would likely be required as a minimum: the removal and replacement of external cladding, the removal and replacement of termite damaged structural timbers in the walls and the upgrading of those walls to meet existing building code, replacement or repair of damaged floor joists and bearers and re-stumping the floor to re-level the structure, repair and replacement of damaged structural members in the roof where termite damage is extensive, and upgrading the roof structure to current standards. The report concludes that these works are so extensive as to be unviable when compared to the cost of starting again, and that in the event that the house was repaired, almost none of the original structure would be able to be salvaged due to the termite damage and the generational deterioration that's occurred over the last 90 years or so. In other words, the end result would essentially be a replica rather than a restoration. We've also provided an updated heritage impact statement and heritage character statement prepared by respected heritage architect Philip Griffiths. These assessments verify Coyne Consulting's findings and conclude that the existing house does not make a positive contribution to the heritage character of the street or the Guildford area. What's left of the original fabric is in very poor condition, and the structure has been modified extensively since the original construction in the 1930s, and that any preservation works would result in the removal or loss of the majority of the original fabric, leaving only fabric that was added at a later date outside of the contributory period. Both the heritage experts and the structural engineer conclude that the building is structurally irredeemable in accordance with the policy. As also noted by the requested by the council, we've provided replacement plans which show how the two lots can potentially be redeveloped in a manner that is compliant with the new policy, as well as being sympathetic to the streetscape and the character of the area, and allowing for the full retention of all of the existing native trees. It also provides two dwellings in lieu of the one uninhabitable dwelling that's there at present. We note the officer's assessment concludes that the two dwellings are fully compliant with the policy, and that the Heritage Council has also provided unconditional support for both the demolition and for the replacement dwellings. Clause 8.1 of the policy establishes a presumption against the demolition of contributory buildings. It does, however, include a very limited set of circumstances where demolition may be appropriate. These circumstances exist for precisely this type of situation. This proposal meets all of the policy requirements to support demolition and is supported by a comprehensive assessment of both the structural integrity and the
You have
heritage
1 minute
character
left,
of the
thank you.
building. Thank you. Both of these assessments conclude that demolition is the best and only viable option in this instance. If ever there is an appropriate time to approve demolition under this discretionary clause, then this is it. Before I finish up, I note that the structural report and the updated heritage assessment have not been included in the attachments to your agenda. I'm very happy to provide copies of these to councillors through the appropriate channels if required. And then finally, just wanted to extend an invitation to all councillors to attend the site in person next week. And I recognise that it's a very busy time of year, but we will make a time to accommodate any councillors that would like to see the site. And if needed, we'll make sure that our experts are there as well to provide any advice that might be needed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leckie. Questions? Councillor Howlett, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Leckie, for your deputation. I would definitely like to see the structural report and the heritage assessment, so thank you. But you said that in your deputation that you'll be keeping every single native tree on site. So can you define native for me, please?
Well, it's as defined in the arborist report that's provided with the application. The trees in focus were the 5 flooded gums that are quite mature in the front of the site. We're proposing the full retention of those flooded gums.
So in the details of the proposal, it lists only 2 trees are proposed to be removed. So that will continue because it looks like they're in the building line of the building.
That's right, yeah. And they're not trees of any significance. They're basically garden that's got out of control over many years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano, you're next.
Thanks. Actually, mine was about the trees as well. Did you say that there was only 5, or is there some other trees there, native trees? Native trees, I think you called them.
I don't have the benefit of the report in front of me, but from memory, there was 5 flooded gums, which were the main focus, and that I think the rest of the species on the site were introduced species.
Okay. So you're going to send that report in, are you?
It is with the officers at the
okay,
moment, and I'm very happy for you to
have a look through
have
that.
a look.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
all
the
right,
officers will be
thanks.
happy to provide it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Russell, can you make sure that that's emailed to all councillors? Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you're next for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my question is, how soon after the demolition will the build of the new houses commence? So when is the demolition going to occur if this was approved? And when would the build of the 2 houses occur?
I don't know that I'm in a position to answer that, councillor, because it's subject to a lot of factors, and it may be the fact that the current landowner doesn't intend to build these houses himself, but rather sell the land with an approved development application on it. You might recall that originally we didn't apply for a replacement dwelling, and those replacement dwellings have been provided at the request of council to show that the land can be developed appropriately and in accordance with the policy.
Councillor Bowman, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on with the tree issue, obviously you're saying that you won't, or you'll protect those 5 flooded gums, but what applicants say and what they actually do could be 2 totally different courses of action. Would you be happy if there was a recommendation or a condition that those 5 flooded gums have to be protected?
Well, certainly that's what we've applied for. So that's
Thank you.
Councillor Richardson, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much, Mr. Leckie. I'd be very interested to attend the site and have a look at the condition of the house myself. I'm currently renovating exactly the same house in a different location, and I think we discussed this at the last meeting, that the house has got some redeemable features. I'm interested in what the proposed cost of that conserving the house being.
I don't believe they've put a number on it in terms of the dollar value, but I think that the point that the structural engineer is trying to make, and obviously it's in the report once you see it, is that of the original fabric that's there at the moment, if you were to restore the house, almost all of the original fabric would be having to be replaced, leaving only existing fabric that's non-original, that's been added, through the 60s, 70s, 80s type thing.
Because I noted in the photos at the last council meeting that there had been some gyprocking done, which was new gyprocking in the kitchen and the walls, and there was an alarm system. There were quite a few features there that weren't non-salvageable because they were clearly new. I'm also interested in what the proposed cost of the demolition will be.
I don't have that information, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Leckie? Councillor Knight.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, mate. Yeah, just regarding the new builds, what about noise insulation? Will you be putting double glazing on the windows for these? Because it's easier to do it now rather than try and retrofit it.
Are you
It's right under the flight path. So.
the flight path as opposed to the rail line or anything like that? So,
Yeah, the flight path. Really.
Look, we haven't got to that level of detail yet, to be honest. This is at development application stage, and when we go to building license stage, we'd look at that. Sort of
Okay, thank you.
We've got another presenter who's actually the landowner, so I'll have that deputation first, and I'll take any more questions to staff after that. Thank you, Mr. Leckie, for your attendance and your deputation.
And my apologies, I should have introduced the landowner at the start.
Thank you. I now call Mr. Javier Harazo, who's the landowner at number 7 Fauntleroy, to speak. And once again, you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you to the council for receiving me and for hearing me. I'm here just to share a little bit of my experience through this process with the council. It has ended up creating me a lot of anxiety and a lot of trouble. This journey started 4 years ago with the intention of putting a project through these 2 properties, and I received the encouragement of the council to go through because it was very well received. I put myself into a big financial trouble just to go through a project that I was believing into. After 4 years, which I only can say that has been battling with the council, ended up being not going anywhere. And it has been 1 year trying to demolish a house that was previously accepted through the previous application. In order to be able to sell the 2 different titles property that they are in there is my only way. I'm currently bankrupt, and it's my only way to get out of this situation. I'm not asking. It has been long proof that the property doesn't have any architectural value. We have been welcoming every member of the council to visit the place and see really the state of the house. Honestly, this house is between 2 properties, and it has been a year in the market. I've been trying to sell the property, and it's impossible to sell this without demolishing this property. I don't know what else I can do to get to you guys to understand that it's the only way for me to not end up on the streets. So I just welcome you just to come along this week to see what is the state, to see what can be done, and please help me out to get out of this situation.
Thank you. No questions? Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Harazo, a question for you, and I do acknowledge that you've told us that you're bankrupt, which I guess we're all sympathising with that. I'm sorry to hear that. The question I've got is your intention to demolish and sell, or demolish, rebuild and sell?
So for me, it's not. I don't have chance to reveal at all. At this stage is demolish and sell. With the has been a request. My understanding is there has been a request of the council to put a future possible development on the site to prove that can be developed, and that's what we have done in order to get through the demolition.
Okay, thank you.
Has been a request of the council now. There always has been the demolition to be able to sell the property.
Councillor Richardson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Ross. I'm just interested and curious in what why you might have bought a property that you knew was in such disrepair at the time, knowing that the costing of repairing that property was going to be quite high if you were paying for it to be done. Was that the intention originally? Was for someone to restore the property, or you came in
So
to make? I think it is. There was an
Well-
intention behind buying the property.
Mr. Harasso, you're not obliged to answer the question. It's not a formal meeting. I don't know if we can take points of order.
I have no problem to answer
Yeah.
the question.
But
Yeah,
it's up to yourself.
yeah. The original project provided to the city of Swan, it was to provide a childcare center, and through that application, it was approved the demolishing of the existing house. That was proposed, and it was encouraged by the council to go through the process. That was the intention through the property initially. That led up to 3 years of battle. At some point, the city of Swan just turned out that decision into something that was nonsense and dragged me out to this current situation.
If the childcare had been approved at that point, would we possibly be in a mid-state then if the bankruptcy was an issue then that the project wouldn't have been completed?
No, well, it could have been completed perfectly but if the process would have been normal through the whole stage. The current situation that I've been going through 4 years of 1 million home loan and extra payment to get through all this battle has been putting me in this situation. It was nothing with the project that I was trying to provide to the city.
Did you have that proposed cost of conserving the house and also the proposed cost of demolition?
For this application, you
Yeah.
mean?
Do you have those
No,
costings?
I don't.
You don't know
have, no,
what they would be?
No,
Okay,
no, sorry.
thank you.
No other, Councillor Catalano? Yes, continue.
Yes, thanks. So just then following on, like, why can't you just sell the property as it is and just move on?
It has been a year on the market as it is, and it's just not been taken.
You
So-
can't get any buyers
No.
for it. Okay, then. And the other thing I was just curious about what you just said is what made you think that you were going to be able to demolish and build the childcare centre there in the first place, given that Guildford is has got that heritage?
It initially was
Precinct.
encouraged by the council, and through the process of that approval, that was accepted. It was connected to that application, but it was never an issue, the demolition of the house, and it was approved initially. Now, as that application was turned down, and at the end of the day, I had to put a new one just only for the demolition, and this process has been taking a year. In this last year is when all this new regulation has come up. So
Okay, great.
it never has been a problem, the demolition at all, in the last 4 years since I started this journey.
What you mean, you haven't been advised that demolition in Guildford might be a problem in the last 4 years? Nobody has ever advised you of that, given that
I know that it's a heritage area,
Yeah.
but on the initial application,
known.
I know, yeah, and the
Yeah.
proposed childcare was meeting the requirements of the city of Swan to rebuild an architectural feature that looking like there. So it was all meeting initially. So all that was taken in consideration, and the demolition was approved by that or accepted by that application. Now, when the new application had to be launched, it has come up as a 1 year journey where it has been reapproved and hold back over a whole year. We've been trying to provide we provided all the information that you guys has been requested.
Okay, so just then, finally, you knew it was a heritage area
Yeah.
when you actually purchased.
Actually,
the property?
when I purchased the property,
Yeah.
it was not a part of the heritage area. It was included after the purchase of the property into the
okay.
heritage area.
But
Now, the project provided, and at that time, it was
Mm.
meeting all the requirements of the heritage area.
Okay, but you kind of had an idea that it
I
was
had an
likely,
idea that-
likely to be included in the rest of the heritage.
I was not aware that it was going to be an extension of the
nobody told
heritage
you
area,
that.
but I was aware that Guildford it
Yeah.
has a huge heritage
Okay.
area.
All right then, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Then thank you, Mr. Horazo, for your time.
Thank you.
I've got some questions for staff. Councillor Johnson, you first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Russell about planning conditions that could be applied to this. Is there any way, Mr. Russell, of applying a condition of this to ensure that the, in some way, that the houses are definitely built shortly after the demolition occurs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you could apply a condition. It would be my opinion, I wouldn't fancy its sustainability. The past policy before the current policy merely said that when you're demolishing a building in Guildford, you shall also provide replacement plans for the purpose of seeing what the replacement that is to be approved would be. Neither the current policy nor the old policy goes anywhere near stipulating that as a mandatory requirement to be attached as a condition that where you demolish a building, you must rebuild in accordance with the approved plans. If you are going to, if you have an approval for the rebuild, then obviously that's what you would build. But there's nothing to mandate that you must do so. I'm not convinced, in all honesty, and there might be case law on this in the SAT, I'm not convinced intuitively that you would sustain a condition saying you must rebuild.
Any other questions, councillors? Then we move to part B of the agenda and item 3.1, Binar Futures. There's two in-person deputations, and I invite to the microphone first Ishrad Swangawala on behalf of Binar Futures. Thank you. You have 5 minutes, and I'll try and give you a minute warning when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Irshad Songawala. I'm a board member and the treasurer of Binar Futures. And I'm here also representing Andrew Vlahoff, our chair, and our entire board. And thank you for the opportunity to say a few words today. I also wanted to firstly express how appreciative we are of the Leisure Services team and their assistance in helping us prepare our business case, and also for all the work that they've done in preparing their report to council. We're obviously delighted with the recommendation that the council endorse our proposal. We're also very excited about the opportunity to formally engage with the city. Binar has a proven track record for developing strong relationships between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, and also creating culturally safe environments for all. It's an area we feel we can assist the city to work together and deliver on their RAP plan with true reconciliation in action, with a real opportunity to create significant social impact. And if I may, I'd like to use my allocated time to provide the councillors with a little bit more context to a couple of the points that were raised in the report. The first is in relation to our ability to effectively manage the competition. Binar as an organisation looks very different 2 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. We now have a highly engaged board, an executive team, dedicated and skilled office staff and volunteers, strong relationships with key government bodies and corporates, and also MOUs in place with organisations like Basketball WA, Warwick Stadium, and the Indigenous Basketball Australia. We have a proven ability to deliver on grants, which we have with DLGSC, and also secure sponsorships. And we have a team that is highly experienced in delivering basketball competitions and tournaments, made up of largely volunteers. The report does recognise us as having demonstrated strong governance and organisational capability currently, but we do acknowledge that our capability to run a competition to the scale described in our business case is yet unproven. We have a strong partnership with the Warwick Senators, which are one of the largest, most successful basketball associations in Perth, who have committed to assist us alongside the city's knowledge and experience. This is why we welcome the 2-year trial period to be reviewed annually, where we'll work closely with the Leisure Services team to ensure the benefits of this competition are realised for both the city and also the community. The second point was around Binar's financial sustainability. Our approach to financial modelling, which is very detailed and I think has been shared with both the Leisure Services team and also the city's finance team, was to ensure the competition was financially self-sustaining and was not reliant on external funding. Player fee structure, which has had regard to comparable competitions and other sporting codes, the mix of paid and volunteer staff, and our ability to agree a long-term user discount for the court hire all underpins this. Having said that, we do have current funding support from both the private and public sectors into our registered charity, Bin Our Futures, to cover hardships and any shortfalls, with any surplus being actively reinvested into the development of our coaches, our referees, our volunteers and our staff. So thank you once again for this opportunity to represent BINAR on behalf of our board, and I'd like to just pass on to our founder, Adam Desmond, for a few closing comments.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there's any
Oh, sure.
councillor with any questions. Councillor Bowman first.
Just one question about your funding model. So you've pretty well said you're not reliant on external grant funding, but if I do a quick calculation, you're only getting $25 admin fee from the participants, 100 teams, let's say 10 kids per team, it's only $25,000 to fund any costs. Are you saying that's all it's going to take?
That's right. So yeah, that's right.
Councillor Catalano.
Yes, I'm a little bit concerned about the basketball users already down there, like just what sort of approaches are you going to make to those? I mean, I think there's sort of like small associations, and I mean things might have changed a fair bit since when my son was playing basketball there, but there were sort of small associations that have been going on for a long time. So just wondered how you're going to approach them, and whether they were going to be able to be welcome into what you're proposing.
Sure. Look, inclusivity around what we're trying to do is paramount to everything that our business case talks to. So, and Adam can speak to this when he gets up to the podium, but we have relationships with a lot of the basketball associations in the area, and also the schools in the area for that matter. We have cultural presentations and activities at those schools as well. So for us, it's really about getting the entire community to come in, and that includes the basketball clubs and associations that would have used the facility before.
Okay, and the other thing is, maybe it's another question for the other person, but you know, the BINAR, it seems to be what, I mean, I got the impression that it was about being sort of competitive to the extent where, you know, you're pushing for kind of state performance. So just like, what about those basketball players that just want to play for fun, for fitness?
Sure.
That not really looking to, you know, get on a state team or anything like that, which is pretty much at the end of the day the majority of sporting.
Sure.
So people play sport for.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And Adam can probably elaborate, but the actual competition is not about getting kids to get into elite pathways. It's around giving people in the community an opportunity to use the facility and play basketball for all the reasons that you just mentioned around, you know, being part of a community, being healthy, and, you know, allowing getting to do things on the weekends when, you know, they could be doing other things. So the business case actually talks about a wobble program, which is a secondary thing, and it's a longer term sort of strategy for us. But right now, the immediate term is getting a domestic competition running that is open to anyone, and it's all levels of basketball ability, and it's making sure that we're structuring the player fee structure so that there's no, and the financial barriers aren't there for people to participate as well.
Any other questions, Councillor? Councillor Parry.
I just asked, why did you choose Midland and the City of Swan to put BINAR in its place?
That's probably best responded to by Adam. Yeah, if that's okay.
Okay, then I thank you once again for your deputation and being here tonight, and call to the podium the next presenter, Mr. Adam Desmond. Thank you, Adam. Once again, you'll have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have a minute left.
Sure. Yeah, thanks very much for having us tonight. I guess I want to just touch on probably answering a little bit of the questions that were just asked as well. We're why Binar started in Midland. I grew up in Midland area. I've born in Swan Districts Hospital, been here my whole life. I played basketball as a child, and it was a big part of my life. I noticed that there wasn't a competition, which I didn't realise when, say, 11 years ago, when Binar started. There was no competition in our area, which I was really surprised about. That's when this journey started. Initially, it was about the kids that couldn't get access to get to other areas to play. That was the way that I would pick them up and take them to them games. When we found that this number was growing and growing, and there was a lot more, that's when we first actually spoke to Leisure Services about hiring the courts. And that's that's why Midland is the reason for why we've done this. When the question earlier around the state level things and things like that. So 100% what we're about is to have a community basketball competition for people of all abilities from all different backgrounds. That is something that's really, really important for us to have in this Midland area. But to also have, for the kids that do want to take their basketball further, and whether it's basketball, refereeing, coaching, whatever it might be, that there is pathways for them as well. We have associations in Midland in just about every other sport. We don't have a basketball association, and we haven't for 20 odd years, more than 20 years. So that, to me, it's about creating further opportunities than what would happen, I guess, from what was previously happening as a city-run competition that didn't have a girls' competition, that didn't have anything for over 16s, and there was a lot more limitations to it. We want to make sure it's inclusive of absolutely everybody. Around other users, we want as many other users as possible. This is not something that we want exclusively for Binar. This is about Binar creating the association for everybody in the community to be a part of, and that's something that's probably sometimes perceived a little bit differently, but that is something that's really important to us, that this is for everybody. It's important, for me to see an environment where, say, some of the kids that do find a pathway that might have to go to Kalamunda or East Perth or other associations if they want to take their basketball further. This is kids from all backgrounds. They are in an environment where they don't have kids from their school or local kids in that space. So they're going into an environment where they're actually an outsider. And we want to create a pathway here in their own community. They can further their basketball playing, refereeing, etc., in their own community. So that's why, to me, it's something that's very vital. It was something that I was a part of growing up, and it was a big part of my childhood, and I'd like to see it for every single child in this area. I don't know if there's anything else I need to really touch on, but I'm happy to take any questions if there's any.
Thank you.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Podovnik. While we can hear you, we'll take your question. I can see you, yes.
I've requested to have a deferral on this issue, and I'd be happy to speak to you and the person who spoke before you as well.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the Aboriginal groups here, Koya and also Pioneers, I've spoken to them, and they've got some concerns, I guess, and they're asking or would be supporting a deferral to continue to have a few discussions. Is that something that you would support?
The discussions or the deferral, or what? Yeah, I guess we're absolutely open to any discussions. We would we'd like to have any concerns or questions or whatnot spoken about. Yeah, we'd be more than happy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Parry, you're next.
I believe you answered my question, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks very much, Adam. I know that you gave us a talk earlier at briefing session regarding what the plans were, that which is quite interesting and exciting. I just wanted to confirm with you that that it will be centralised at Midland, that there won't be driving competitions. Is that right, on Saturday mornings, or the kids don't have to go outside of the area?
That's correct. Yeah, it would be at Midland. Yeah.
Which would definitely help parents who are time-strapped and driving around on weekends to competitions, but particularly with the rise of petrol and fuel at the moment, but also growing that sort of young community where they see people they know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman, you're next.
Adam, just a quick one. When were you hoping, in an ideal world, to start the season?
In the ideal world, depending on when the centre is completed, after the renovations, the indications, if that's sort of mid next year or whatnot, probably the term 4 of 2023.
Okay, and would I be right? There'd be a lot of planning to go through on your part, and would you see if we did make a decision to early February, would that impact any of your planning?
Look, I think no doubt the earlier the better, to be able to, I guess what we see in the area is there's a real need for us to be promoting the game in schools and really get it, because there's no clubs, there's not many clubs, I should say, in Midland. So other associations might have a dozen clubs and then kids feed into them clubs. We sort of need to be in a space where we're actually helping to capacity grow clubs in the area, whether that's through schools, which is when I played, was through our school. So there's a lot of work to be done in that space around. There's a lot of kids that want to play basketball, but getting them into a space that's organised to so I guess February would be definitely make it harder than if we knew. We've got the next couple of months to start really planning.
Councillor Johnson.
Oh, my question's been answered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions, councillors? Ben, thank you, Adam, for your presentation and answering those questions.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillors, that takes us to the next item, item 4.3, the RA report for proposed warehouse, lot 59 Bushmead Road, Hazelmere. And we have Jess Dunbar on behalf of Taylor Burrell Barnett. Thank you, Jess. You'll have 5 minutes and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good evening, councillors. I just wanted to make a very brief deputation tonight. My name's Jessie Dunbar from Taylor Burrell Barnett, and I'm here with Reece Spicer from Total Project Management in relation to item 4.3 on tonight's agenda. Firstly, just wanted to thank the officers for their support throughout the process thus far and their recommendation for approval of the application subject to conditions. We have worked closely with the city's planning officers through their assessment of our application to ensure appropriate development outcome for the site, which we hope will also be supported by council and ultimately approved by the JDAP. The site's located in the broader Hazelmere industrial area, which is being progressively developed for industrial purposes in accordance with the vision established under the Hazelmere Enterprise Area Structure Plan. The development proposes a warehouse of around 13,500 square metres, which can be split internally to form 2 tenancies and are flanked by incidental office buildings with staff amenities, car parking, truck loading areas and high quality landscaping. It's broadly compliant with the city's planning framework and is an entirely suitable use for this site with a convenient access to key freight routes. The proposal is supported by a range of technical inputs which inform the design and management of the development to ensure it operates appropriately in the context of the surrounding area with no adverse impacts in terms of noise, waste and traffic generation. The proposal will complement the existing and recently approved industrial development in the local area. We are broadly satisfied with the conditions of approval as recommended by the city, but request one minor modification to condition 18, which relates to public art. Point A of the condition requires the payment of cash in lieu prior to commencement of operation or prior to the issuance of building permit, whichever occurs first. And given the sequencing of events, this essentially means that payment would need to be made prior to the issuance of building permit, given this would occur prior to occupation. This is somewhat inconsistent with the wording of other parts of the condition which refer to public art contribution being made prior to commencement of operation. In reviewing the city's public art local planning policy, we note it is silent on the timing for payment of cash in lieu, but where provided in kind, public arts to be commissioned and installed prior to occupation of the development. So we therefore request point A of condition 18 be modified to require the payment of cash in lieu prior to commencement of operation. The suggested modification provides greater flexibility for the proponent to determine whether they'll be providing public art or a cash in lieu payment as the detailed design and construction progresses across the site, rather than requiring this decision and payment at the building permit stage. In summary, we support the officer recommendation that the council endorse the RAR and request a minor modification to condition 18. And myself and Reece would be happy to answer any questions from councillors. Thank you.
Thank you for that deputation. Councillor Henderson.
Surprise, surprise. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the deputation. When you say prior to commencement of operations as opposed to prior to occupation, where you've occupation and operations, I want to get clear about, is there a difference between occupation and operations?
I don't think that there is a material difference between the two. So either if it's before occupation or operation, as long as it is after the building permit stage is essentially what we're asking for.
I understand where you're coming from. And do you feel that $130,000 towards the project is an impost?
Well, I'm not the one paying it, but yeah, look, that's obviously the standard approach that's been taken by the city and many other local governments. So yeah, that's something that is generally factored in.
Thank you.
Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. I wanted to chat about or ask you questions about the trees. There were 81 trees that are going to be removed, and except for 2. Do you know what kind of trees you're going to retain, and where are these trees that are going to be retained?
I can point out to you where the trees will be retained. There is a tree retention.
So what about if you haven't got a copy of this by any chance, have you, this report that we've got?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. If you want to just take me to the page.
It's the final attachment to this item. There's a tree protection zone diagram.
Okay, all right. So it's this little thing with just a tiny little courtyard thingy.
It's basically the site plan with a little tree areas circled around on it. Just after, it'll be after that page.
Yeah, they're just a bit hard to quite understand where it fits into these little pockets fit into this whole site, because it's just not really 100% clear where these pockets. I mean, I saw these pockets, but where are they?
Okay, so just to explain where the trees are located, they're basically in the southern corner of the site.
Southern corner.
So the southeast corner.
South.
Next to the light vehicle access.
Southeast corner. Okay.
And in terms of the species, they are flooded gum.
Okay, so your development is for half of the lot, or sort of 2/3 of the lot?
That's correct.
Correct? So it's somewhere towards the back of the lot that you're at, the bit that you're developing?
No, it's at the front of the lot.
Oh, the front of the lot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. And it's the south, what did you say, the south?
The southeastern corner.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's that one there. Okay, so there's 2 flooded gums, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And you're going to plant a number of other trees, which is, it's sort of, there's quite lots of different ways of reading it, but do you know how many extra trees you're going to plant?
65. 65.
Plant trees. No, I'm talking about trees, not just shrubs.
Yes, trees.
You're going to be able to fit 65 trees around that building.
So that there are a number of areas that are shown to be landscaped at the front of both ends of the building. and also along the drainage swale, which runs along the northern boundary of the property as well.
Oh, because when I looked at the pictures of the building, I just don't see any trees in that. You know, there's these sort of diagrams of the building.
Yeah,
There doesn't seem to be any trees in that diagram.
I think in terms of the perspectives that were prepared as part of the plan package were more to demonstrate the built form, whereas the landscaping plan was done sort of separate to that. They're not actually shown on the perspective images.
Okay. So, sorry, how many trees was that again?
65.
65 trees. And do you know what the square meterage is for those 65 trees in total?
Not for the trees. The total amount of landscaping is 10% of the site area, but
No, I meant for those 65 trees. Because, I mean, it seems to be an awful lot of trees. So I'd like to sort of know what the area is, because I'm not sure how you'd fit.
I mean, there will be a range of different size trees that are going to be.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Because I was thinking of larger trees, and in particular, I was thinking of marries.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any way that you could get some? And I'm talking about Corymbia calophyllus. Is there any way that you can get Corymbia calophyllus into? Because you know they're the trees that the cockies and use as forage, and we're losing them at a massive rate of knots.
Yes, yeah, I do understand that, and there is actually a condition that's been recommended that trees planted in a landscaped area to the front of the warehouse are to be married. Be married.
So how many do you think there'll be of marries? And I don't mean I mean calophyllus rather than the ones that you've got in this report at the back, which are at the front. Here you've got. Ficifolia. I wasn't referring to ficifolias, I was referring to calophyllus. Are you going to be able to do that? And do you know how many of those you're going to put in?
They have been specified, and it's provided within the landscape drawings provided with the package. The exact number I can't tell you.
Oh, do you think you could provide that for me before next week? Preferably in the next couple of days?
Yep.
Thank you for that. And Corymbia calophyllus is the one I'm after. How many of those you're going to be planting and where? Great, thanks for that.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. Then I thank you for your attendance, your deputation, and answering those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howard, you got a question for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to the access and traffic on page 146. It states that there'll be an approximately increase of 357 vehicles per day on Bushmead Road. And it then goes on to talk about the future provision of a north-south road extending between Bushmead and Stirling Crescent, which I'm just questioning, is that the proposed local road that's shown in the HISP?
Mr. Russell, when you're ready.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, it is. Yes, that's the one that was actually the subject of discussion of the structure plan that some councillors attended at the Hazelmere Progress Association meeting.
Thank you. And just one further question relating to that. I'm not sure what sort of traffic movement, because it doesn't state whether it's RAV movement from in that traffic impact assessment, or I haven't noted that. So my understanding is that currently in the HISP, it's a local area road, not designed for RAV traffic. So would the future provision of the north-south road actually make any difference to the 357 car impact? And there's no real date on that future provision, is there? Or is there? Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, the report on page 146 talks about the traffic volumes on Bushmead Road. So that's what's modelled there. The reference to the north-south road is intended to demonstrate that the future provision of the north-south road will entail some impact on the location of the site crossover, limiting movements into left in, left out. So it hasn't, the traffic modelling that was submitted didn't contemplate what the movements might be with respect to movements along that north-south access road connecting Bushmead to Stirling.
Any other questions, councillors? Then thank you. That takes us to the next item, item 4.4. State Administrative Tribunal request to reconsider refusal of illuminated signage in James Street, Guildford, and Mr. J. Chung not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chung. You'll have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm the owner of Rusty Old Boat, located at 127 James Street. I'm objecting to item 4.4 on the agenda for the following reasons. The rules outlined in the conservation policy are inconsistent with the historical era Guildford is trying to preserve, as there is evidence of internally illuminated signage in Guildford since the 1920s. Please refer to source 1. This shows a large incandescent signage of the Regent Theatre located just one shop down from the Rusty Old Boat. To support my claim, I have engaged with historian Prue Griffiths of Hawking Heritage and Architecture, who specialize in matters of architecture, heritage, and conservation. Her research proves the use of incandescent lighting in Guildford during 1926. Please refer to source 2, page 5. This clearly shows that our signage is congruous with the historical built form character of James Street. I would also like to note that our sign does not flash, does not project onto any other neighboring business, nor residential areas. And the sign is built by local award-winning lighting company, which has been manufacturing display signs since 1955. The intent of the design is of two folds. One is to stay consistent with the original electric light signs invented in 1881, and 2, to complement Alfred's signs so to create another landmark in Guildford. I have received numerous compliments from local residents about our sign. The size of the sign is comparable to other businesses' signage in the surrounding area. But more importantly, on source 3, may I stress the Department of Land and Heritage Council has supported and stated that our sign will not impact the cultural heritage significance of Guildford historic town. Prior to the development of this sign, I was not aware of any conservation policy outlining the design criteria, and believe I did not need to apply for any additional approvals. Moving to source 4, with regards to the implementation of the new conservation policy, it will give and does give other businesses a commercial advantage over others, as it will allow some businesses to take their internally illuminated signs while enforcing other businesses to take the signs down. Currently, it does not seem that the policy is applied in a consistent, fair, and just manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for your deputation. I know I spoke to yourself and your son after the last meeting outside, and I completely understand the predicament that you're in, and it was nice to have that discussion with you openly, that you weren't aware of the policy at that time for whatever reason, and he was quite sympathetic to the plight that if his words to me were with you, that if it was fair for the other businesses and they took theirs down, then you would do the same Is that what you had said
Correct.
that night?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does, and like I said, it does, and it will have an advantage and disadvantage over the people who have the sign. Will have clearly advantage towards our business.
And it was quite apologetic that, he would be happy to take it down if the others also conform to that, which was nice that he acknowledged that policy. And again, I apologise that there's that inadequate playing field for both, and that the investment you've put into that signage, for your business. So thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you, Mr. Chung, for your deputation.
Thank you.
That takes us to the next item, councillors. Item 4.5, single house and animal establishment dog kennel in Seaforth Road, Bullsbrook, and is an in-person deputation by Mr. Richard James in support of the officer's recommendation with conditions. Thank you, Mr. James. You'll have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, CEO, and City of Swan staff. My name is Richard James, and I'm here this evening representing the North Swan Land Conservation District Committee and also the Ellen Brockman Integrated Catchment Group. I support the City of Swan staff recommendation for DA 63622, but only providing the following conditions are in place to protect the health of the Ellen Brook. We are all aware, or we should be, that the Ellen Brook is the chief source of nutrients entering the Swan River from river catchments in the Swan Coastal Plain. These nutrients, primarily phosphate and nitrogen, are the root cause of the regular algal blooms in the Swan River. It is imperative that we do not do anything to add to this nutrient load. With regard to the proposed dog training facility on Seaford Road in Bullsbrook, we need to ensure that this facility does not add any nutrients to the Ellen Brook, which runs along the eastern boundary of the property. The Department of Water and Environmental Regulation, DEWA, have made the following comment relating to wastewater disposal. In accordance with the Department's Water Quality Protection Note 70, wastewater treatment and disposal, domestic systems, on-site sewage systems should be set back at least 100 metres from waterways, and secondary treatment systems with nutrient removal are required in sewerage-sensitive areas. The City of Swan Planning Department has made a number of recommendations to this proposal, in particular, point 33, which reiterates this DEWA requirement. In their proposal document, Precision Canine Training has stated, when responding to both the North Swan LCDC and the Ellen Brockman Catchment Group, concerns relating to the disposal of the kennel washdown water, that their hydraulic engineer will be designing an ATU system to deal with nutrients in the wastewater. To this end, the hydraulic engineer must be able to provide a written performance guarantee that the system is capable of removing nutrients from the wastewater. Further to this, an additional condition should be wastewater samples from the approved ATU to be collected and tested twice per annum, that's summer and winter, by an independent third party to ensure compliance that all nutrients are being removed from the wastewater, to ensure none are entering the Ellen Brook groundwater. In the event that the testing and analysis of the wastewater shows that nutrients are still present, then a groundwater monitoring bore should be installed on the southern boundary of the property to identify and measure potential nutrients entering the Ellen Brook. In the event that it is found that nutrients are entering the Ellen Brook groundwater, The City of Swan Compliance Department should take the appropriate action to ensure that this situation is remedied. If these additional conditions are not put in place, then I will withdraw my support for this proposal.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Councillors, I urge you to endorse these additional conditions to help protect the health of the Ellen Brook and the Swan River, which both flow through the City of Swan. They are our waterways, and we are the custodians of these waterways for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson, you're first with a question of staff. Any questions of Mr. James, councillors? Then I thank you for your attendance and your deputation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Question of staff.
Thank you.
The other deputation's written.
Thank you, Mayor.
Have me going for a second. Thank you, Councillor Henderson.
Me too. In regard to the current conditions to do with sewage and waste management, do staff believe they are adequate to be able to deal with the matters outlined by Mr. James? And if not, do we need another condition?
Mr. Russell, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, for a commercial
Could you turn your microphone on, thanks?
Pardon?
Thank you.
For a commercial facility such as this, the approval of an on-site effluent disposal system will be with the Department of Health. In terms of, say, if they have, if there is a system that needs to meet a certain water quality standard, then, and that's what's prescribed in relation to condition 33, then I suppose as the condition is worded, you're taking it that a facility that meets the water quality note on faith will perform to deal with wastewater. If the council's mindful that it wants to put in belt and brace safeguards in the form of testing regimes, it is free to do so, of course. It can do that. Those sorts of requirements, I suppose, and if it's looking at independent testing, and by that we mean not the applicant, then I suppose it's going to assume that the city's got to arrange for that testing arrangement and presumably have the applicant pay for it. We might need to clarify exactly who is doing what and at what cost, but the council can, if it's desirous to have those safeguards, impose extra detail in the condition.
Follow-up question?
I'll be looking to add a condition through Mr. Russell. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the staff, and it might not be easy to answer. The previous application was for 50 dogs, 3 training fields. This is now 2 training fields. Are they proposing to have more than 1 dog on the training field at any time?
Through Mr. Mayor, the condition 4, the recommendation of page 7, which is the same as the operational management proposal for the original application elsewhere, is that they will have no more than 2 dogs in the training fields at any one time. So if there's 2 training fields, that's 4 dogs outside of the kennel in the training fields at any one time.
Mr. Mayor, did the applicant advise why they need 2 training fields now with the same amount of dogs?
The applicant has indicated that they're adding 2 training fields instead of the 3 proposed originally for purposes of saving development costs.
Mr. Mayor, condition 6 places, and these are questions I submitted 2 days ago, but I haven't got a response, so my apologies for taking time of council. Condition 6 places a limit on not being outside of the kennel and not being in the exercise area of training field after 10 p.m. However, the applicant states that training will not occur after 6 p.m. and the 10 p.m. reference appears to be from the QSIC report. Why is there no condition about the business hours of the training, etc.? And can this condition be reworded or a new condition added to allow for this?
just raise your voice a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by saying I did generate some answers to Councillor Bowman's questions a couple of days ago, so my apologies if the administration hasn't provided those through to him, because he does make the effort to ask his questions in a timely manner, so my apologies there. What I provided in response to Councillor Bowman's questions in relation to this condition was that planning conditions must have a planning purpose. And the purpose of condition 6 is to regulate the hours of operation, specifically the training area, is to address concerns with noise mitigation that come directly from the accepted modelling in the acoustic assessment. Now, the fact that the applicant may say, well, look, I'm running a business here and I'm going to work normal business hours, whatever that might be, and finish at 6 p.m. is well and good. But the salient point here is that he can, if he chooses to, still meet the noise regulations, training dogs outside, perhaps in the dark, because of any lights, but training dogs outside till 10 p.m. And so the condition has a relevant planning purpose, setting the purpose of mitigating noise. Simply having a condition that relates to the hours of operation, because that's what the applicant says they're going to operate, doesn't have that relevant planning connection. So that's the reason why we've had condition 6 constructed the way it is, and if it just so happens that the party say, well, I'm finished at 6, so I'm not going to train any dogs outside, well and good, but it doesn't have a planning purpose to condition to say if you can't, if you wanted to, train your dogs after 6 p.m. and Friday 10 p.m.
Mr. Mayor, my next question then is why, with home-based businesses, for example, do we put time limits on the business to protect the amenity if it's not a planning issue?
Mr. Russell?
Through Mr. Mayor, it may well be a planning issue in a home-based business in a closely or more densified urban residential environment. We know here we're dealing with the rural environment in a rather outlying area of Hallsbrook, and as you can see where the population density is not there, so horses for courses, in this instance the condition serves for the purposes of noise.
Mr. Mayor, my final question. On page 192, it looks like the driveway to the training facility is extremely close to the boundary. Is that one permitted, two reasonable, and would it not be more reasonable for it to be moved to the northern side of the facility? And the other part of that question was, which I think I already probably know the answer, will the driveway be sealed?
Mr. Russell?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll answer the last part of the question first. Yes, the driveway will be sealed. It's a condition. In relation to the rationale as to why the driveway is situated on the southern boundary, well, I think whilst that's not articulated in the application, I think we can logically infer, if you have a look at page 192, that's the location of the facility and the training yards, and then where I've described the southern half of the site. That course is also a part of a lot that is actually probably less vegetated than other parts. The part of the site is there, so we put the driveway, I suppose, along close to the southern boundary of the lot to serve the facility. There is no regulations that we have that prohibits the placement of the driveway access in that location. As to the question as to whether it would be more reasonable to place it on the northern side, clearly you would have the access driveway remote from the placement of the kennel facility and the training yards. And I don't see that placing it on the northern side, whilst it would be a disservice to the logistics of access to this facility, I don't see it would have any benefit in mitigating any impacts to anyone else, noting that neither the southern side nor the northern side have any proximate residences close by this area.
And the distance from the boundary?
The distance, there's another question, the distance, the driveway from the boundary. Thanks, Mr. Russell.
I'd like to take that on notice, Mr. Mayor, that these plans don't quite indicate the setback of the lot from the, the driveway from the lot boundary.
Thank you. If that can be provided as soon as possible. Councillor Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, to Mr. Russell. Can I just confirm the boundary fencing, please? It says that it was withdrawn. So we've got here, prior to commencement of operation, the applicant owner is to install around the perimeter of each of the 2 training areas a 1.8 metre tall colour-bond fence so as to achieve the noise levels estimated. But within our rural landscape, the use of colour-bond is not generally. Is that still going to be used for the training facility, the 2 training fields?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, and as was articulated in the earlier application lodged by this proponent on another side, use of colour bond is a necessary noise mitigation arrangement for the training yards. And as the earlier report noted, in that situation, solid fencing is not typically rural. Typical rural fencing is posted wire or posted rail. But in this instance, noting it's necessary for noise mitigation, we've accepted it with the conditions imposed here as they were recommended in the previous application, that it be landscaped or planted around to lessen the visual impact of having solid fencing.
Just one more question. Was there any proposal put forward for the front boundary fence as a secondary backup to, I guess, the amount of dogs on that property?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I heard that question.
Was there any proposal for the front boundary fence? It looks like it was withdrawn here. Proposed 1.8 metre high colour-bond fencing. As previously relayed, the city would not be supportive of a 1.8 colour-bond fence on the property boundary. Was that the front yard boundary?
Through Mr. Mayor, I believe that was virtually all boundaries. And the reason why that wasn't supported is that fencing is not required for the mitigation. The fencing was designed by the proponent to secure the dogs from escaping. And as remarked in the previous report, we don't need to have solid fencing to be dog-proof. You may still construct a dog-proof fence with wire, which accords with the rural treatment, without having to have a very substantial perimeter fence in this location of Cumberland.
I just clarify, is there a front fence included in that development application?
Through Mr. Mayor, the fencing treatment will be articulated in condition.
It's on the plan on page 192 also, in very small print along each perimeter.
Which page? Page
192.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking for the condition with respect to, yes, condition 8 on page 187, reference to need to install around the perimeter light fence and posted wire construction to standard and height sufficient to detain any dogs. Irrespective of what's depicted on the plan, we are saying to secure this entire property from the escape of dogs, where that might occur, we either have a dog-proof fence around it, full perimeter wire construction.
And what would the minimum height be as a standard for council for that?
I would hazard a guess, Mr. Mayor, I'd be quite comfortable with 1.8 to 2 metre wide fence. I haven't seen too many dogs that can clear a 2 metre fence.
Any other questions, councillors? Being no other questions, that takes us to the next item. It's item 4.6, proposed convenience store, fast food outlet, shop, restaurant, showrooms and signage at Marvel Entrance, Brabham. There's an in-person deputation from Mr. Tim Dawkins in support of the officer's recommendation with a modified recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Dawkins. You have 5 minutes. I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. I'm here to talk about item 4.6 and I'm talking in favour of the recommendation of staff. Tonight is actually a fairly significant night for me because we've been working with this council and Stockland previously for the development of the entire Brabham Centre. So we started on this site before there was anything there, before Jungle Park existed, and we worked through this with council for a long time. The subsequent Coles development, we've put the application for and have had approval for that, and the stage 1 of the Arise development, which is on the ground there now, as I'm sure you've all seen recently. So these are council's documents. This is council's approval, and council will be very proud of what's achieved there because it's a fantastic outcome what's occurred. This is an application that meets the threshold to go to JDAP. We didn't go to JDAP because council's given us such good outcomes over the site over the years, and we've achieved really good outcomes for the Brabham area. What I wanted to talk about is the application itself. We support the application and the recommendation. There's 4 conditions that we would like to have corrected or amended. One in particular is highly problematic. The other 3 are undesirable. We'd like them improved, but we can live with them. I'm sure you've all seen the circular that we circulated earlier today about the reasons and the recommendations for our changing to the conditions. But I'd just like to quickly talk about some of those things. Firstly, this site is located in an area which was always designated for these sorts of uses, and that's recognised in the officer's report. The statement, the vision statement for the precinct within the Brabham Centre we're in says that the precinct will predominantly accommodate a mix of car-based retail uses, car parking, drawing such uses away from the Main Street environment to ensure it's not negatively impacted by these incompatible uses. So the success of the Main Street is also partly due to the success of this precinct. The objectives for this precinct, well, the frontage type, the precinct's divided up by frontage types. And for this high-speed frontage type, it talks about providing for car-based uses away from the Main Street, providing for development that is attractive to Yuildene Road and Everglade Avenue, and providing development that is accessible for pedestrians and linked to the shopping centre precinct. And the precinct has these connections through it. You'll see in the activity centre plan, there's cleared connections that show how to get from Yuildene Road through the shopping centre, and they've been provided as part of stage 1. There's 46 car parks shown in this application, and we're accepting to lose 8 of them in a particular way. For the record, because it's already been discussed tonight, there's 11 trees that will be planted on this site, which will go into mature trees, and 556 shrubs that will be developed on the site. And this is only for that portion. It's part of a wider development, and the planting palette replicates what's already been provided through the existing development on the site. So the conditions. Condition 3 is the one that we are really urging council to consider differently. It asks that 8 car bays on the corner of the site be removed and vegetated. That's not possible from the way the centre operates, and those sites are already allocated for EV charging stations. So the EV charging will be pre-cabled, and there'll be cables run out to that corner there, and that's where the EV stations are. Don't like to boast, but I'm a Tesla driver. There's not many of these things around, and they're coming around. I drove past an Ampol on the Grayson Highway this afternoon on the way here, and there's a recharge station there, and this will be an Ampol branded station, and they're rolling out their EV charging. So that's the spot that's been set aside for the EV charging. The location we want to put those 8 bays and put additional landscaping is to the north of the site, which is actually closer to the rest of the shopping centre, and actually a place where people can actually, it will be more fairly distributed amongst the activity centre. So a picnic area, a place that can be landscaped, and you can take your food from all the different shops that have been delivered so far, and actually sit, perhaps when I'm charging my Tesla, I can buy something from Plastic Cup and sit there and eat it. That'd be fantastic. So we're happy to have those plans amended to relocate those 8 bays. Just going to condition 6. Condition 6 talks about the zebra crossing, the location of zebra crossing. I'm not sure if you've been out recently, but there's actually that's already been the location of the crossing is necessitated by the existing pram ramps that were developed as part of stage 1. That's on council's land, but been delivered by the applicant through the approval that's been granted for stage 1. So that's already there, and there's a ramp to get up for universal access, and that's already in that position, which is why it dictates that location. There's different levels, there's retaining on the site, and to get universal, fair, dignified access to that point is already been provided, but it's in a spot, and it's going to be a fair bit of work to move that. So that would be fantastic if we can move that. Condition 6 requires a sustainability report. Now, having written most of the planning framework that council now adopted and are the owners of over the site, there's no requirement for sustainability. Nothing's been required for stage 1, and nothing's been required for the Coles development, and there's no planning process which accommodates that. We are putting solar panels on the roofs. We are doing native planting. We are doing water-wise planting, but there's actually no requirement in the planning framework for it. And the condition itself doesn't really give any certainty. And that's one of the limbs of testing of appropriate conditions, that there's certainty. It just says in the build.
Thank you, Mr. Dawkins. I'll let you go a minute over.
Oh.
I was so intrigued in looking at all the conditions, I'd forgotten to give you the.
Oh, I thought I was going to get my minute warning. Anyway, the other conditions, condition.
And
they
I
can happen to-
apologise for that. I think Councillor Johnson, you want to hear the rest of the deputation. Is there anyone against Mr. Dawkins continuing? Being no one against, then I ask you to continue, but please finish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have had my own timer on. Apologies. The only other condition is condition 11, and that relates to the service vehicle condition. I think it's just a misinterpretation of the condition, because it says that all service vehicles, including fuel tankers, must enter and exit via Mayfield Drive. That, when my initial reading of that suggested that the vehicles have to enter the site and leave onto Mayfield Drive, that's not what the traffic report actually suggested. They actually come around and circulate through. What it's asking is they come off Yuildene Road by Mayfield Drive. So we just asked that the condition be better worded to clarify that manoeuvring, which is what we've already proposed. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much for that presentation, Mr. Dawkins. I'm just curious about the 8 EV parking bays. Will they be charged to the customer, or is that a service provided at the station?
No, they're charged to the customer.
And what is the costing charge of that for a quick charge and a long-term?
I don't know. I turned up at a bowling club recently with my Tesla, and I had the wrong cord and I couldn't do it. But it's not. It's quick. So it basically takes you much quicker than mine takes 12 hours to charge them at home. But you pay for it, but it happens quicker.
So in terms of the parking, so something I'm looking at here is when these bays are in use, we're looking at possibly people doing a quick 15-minute charge. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Or half an hour, or how long it takes.
So
typically about half an hour for a full charge. But the mindset is not about getting a full charge anymore. You don't have to fill up it. Things
just that time. That I just wanted to confirm that's what it generally is. There's a quick 15-minute charge or the half-hour charge for those, because they'll predominantly be taken up if people are charging in the future.
Yeah, in the future. Yep. And on my Tesla app, I can look up. There's 6 charge stations available, and I can find out if they're there or not. It's pretty cool.
No worries. Thanks.
Any other questions, Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said there was 11 trees getting planted. Are they all bottle brush?
No, there's I knew you'd ask the question, so I have the plan here. I don't have it here available. They're half callistemon and half something else. Hang on, I've got it here now. Tuckaroo.
So half a bottle brush. So what other measures are you going to put in place to give a extensive canopy to the area and provide shade?
Well, there's shading. The coals have shade structures of a blacktop. So we're not proposing that. We've got the trees to provide shade, but it's tying into the existing planting palette. So the instruction to the landscape architect was to continue the theming, because this is a very small little last precinct of what's already been delivered. So it's to try and make a unified precinct.
So the officer's recommendation, which was for those 8 bays to be landscape area, which you don't like, was to provide for shade to the joining footpath network. If you're not going to have the trees there, how are you going to shade that footpath network?
Well, the actual planning of the area doesn't anticipate a lot of people using that portion. It's actually the connection across the top, which is Wandering Way, would actually, I think, have more footpath traffic along it. So the benefit of having trees, shade trees, and we're happy to have different trees. We can have different a palette to what's already there. But if we have shade trees to Wandering Way, that's actually a far more popular path and likely to have people. There's not many people actually ever going to walk along that street, because it's really the throat for the vehicular access and doesn't take you anywhere.
And final question, Mr. Mayor. You said you're proud of the other application or other developments. In my view, the line of sight on a lot of those applications is quite dangerous. How confident is there's no line of sight issues in this application?
Well, I mean, Shawmac did the traffic engineer. They're accredited traffic engineers. It's been peer reviewed by the city. I can't really express a view as to the level of safety, but it complies with the assessment standards that apply.
Yes, Catalano.
Yes, thanks. I'm going to speak about the marrows again because, everybody's forgotten to plant them and, it's about time we start planting them. So what's the chances of you planting some marrows here instead of bottle brushes or callistemums or whatever that don't really, but they make beautiful shade trees?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a very high chance because the 11 trees we've got are not including this area, which will be landscaped. So we've got an opportunity now to do more trees. So whatever they could be, what I suggest is before the council meeting next week is we actually get the plan updated, show what that space will look like and specify some trees. And I'll see if marrows are possible. I suspect they have a good survival rate in the area. I don't know why.
Marrows?
Do you say marrows?
Yes, I'm saying, yes, I'm saying Corymbia calophylla and survival rate, they are the tree of the place where we live. So that's why we need them so desperately because they've all been knocked over and they'll grow and they'll provide beautiful trees and shade and iconic as well. So I'd really like to see that before the next meeting so that I can satisfy myself that this doesn't need changing.
Great.
To,
there'll have to be a very good reason we don't do that. So
if you could provide us that, then I won't have to ask for it to be amended for that to be done. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. You mentioned solar panels on the roofs of the buildings. Is it on the roofs of all of those structures, or just...
They're not shown on the plan. So the deemed provisions exempt DAs for solar panels.
I realise.
Yeah. So we have.
But are you putting panels on all of the roofing structures, or just some of them?
Alex might know the answer to that.
The majority of them, I think, there are about 8 buildings and 5 will have solar panels on them.
So the reason for the question is that if you put a dirty great big tree near your solar panels on the northern side, you're not going to get much electricity. So
the trees quite the spot we've nominated is quite removed from any roofed area, and now they mostly have micro inverters. So each panel has a different inverter. So if
I realise I know it works. I just want to be sure that you're aware that if you put big trees like big marrows, you might get some shading problems.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess I can only say I hope so. If the tree does it well, I'll be very happy.
Any other questions of Mr. Dawkins, councillors? Then I thank you, Tim, for your deputation, your attendance. Councillor Howlett, you had a question for staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to condition 8 that Mr. Dawkins wanted us to consider removing. I'm confused by that condition. I don't think I've seen it before. Perhaps I've missed it. I'm just trying to understand the intent of that condition, and is it a new condition or has it been used in the past and I've just missed it?
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
My speaker's working, Mr. Mayor. Joy, thank you. It's a relatively new condition, I suppose, in the way it's been constructed, but it stems from the direct application of State Planning Policy 7 Design of the Built Environment, and it's come from, as you'll see in the report, the attachments, has come from the recommendation of the peer review of this application by a design consultant who actually, I think from memory, also happens now to be the Deputy Chair of the City of Swan Design Review Panel. So, yes, the bar has been lifted, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the provision of conditions and the critique of applications such as this. And so whilst Mr. Dawkins may have said earlier stages didn't have X, Y and Z on them, true enough, in 2022, right now, with our peer review and our design review panels, you will start to see these applications. Sustainability is one of the core tenets of the design of the built environment state planning policy for very obvious reasons. And the recommendation there is for the proponent to actually go away and subsequently provide some details as to what sustainability measures their development will incorporate into the development, whether it's solar panels, water conservation is a common one in terms of stormwater roof runoff being reused for the reticulation of garden areas. All those things, Mr. Mayor, no doubt that the council could probably imagine would be included in such a plan. I think it's clear enough for the proponents. We say it's relevant. We say it should stay. It's in line with best practice. It's what everyone is doing in 2022 and no one should be surprised by it.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. So can I ask, does it include flora and fauna as part of the ecological sustainability strategy, in the sense that I suppose the provision for wildlife corridor or taking that on board, or is it more about energy consumption and waste reduction?
Through Mr Mayor, it's more about direct building measures and site measures within the site that you can employ. I would note in terms of the provision of flora and, or I suppose the landscaping plan will look at the provision of native species of landscaping, which of themselves lend an environment to birds, as we know, but that condition is specifically in relation to building measures.
Any other questions, councillors? Then thank you. That takes us to the next item, item 4.7, proposed telecommunications infrastructure, Sacramento Avenue in Beachborough, and is an in-person deputation by Mr Clinton Northerly in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mr Northerly. I'll try and remember to give you a minute's
no problem. I shouldn't take that long, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here and rather than on Teams, as I've been used to of recent time. Obviously, we welcome Council's recommendation for support for this facility. It's an area where we've been looking for quite some time because of the coverage issues, which is only going to be exacerbated over time. People working from home and needing more data, downloading speeds and the like. The planning report as a whole we thought were pretty good, or very good actually, covered all the main issues, visual impact, EME, devaluation, which is all the themes that got raised by the submitters. And I'll just talk about that in a bit more detail. We acknowledge the proposal will inevitably have an impact towards the visual amenity of the immediate vicinity, which is noted within the council report. On balance, however, the provision of this structure with 4G and 5G Telstra technologies will provide an immediate and lasting benefit to the community, which will outweigh the anticipated visual impact by enhancing mobile coverage to Beachborough, an area which has been experiencing prolonged issues with coverage over many years. To demonstrate what the facility will be like within the surrounding area, Council has been provided with a number of photo montages for assessment, which you'll all see within the report itself. As a subject side of this application is a Telstra exchange, it already hosts an existing shelter, underground assets, fencing and suitable driveway access. The use of the land reserved for telco facilities was therefore considered to be the most appropriate solution rather than to erect a new greenfield monopole elsewhere within the vast residential surrounds of the candidate search area. Mobile carriers are encouraged to co-locate their facilities where possible to existing buildings, structures, utility poles. The use of this existing exchange was seen as the best practical solution, considering the candidate search area lacked existing telecommunication towers, suitable building heights, and terrain which could alleviate the need for a taller structure. And I would like to stress there has been due consideration towards surrounding residents by way of a slimline pole design in this instance. There's 25 metres in height, and that includes the turret, and does not contain a traditional head frame as seen on many similar facilities. So a lot of them you'll see it will extend 1.5 metres off either side of the pole. We've addressed a lot of these issues within the submission on the 26th, which is also within the agenda. However, I'd just like to say there's no real credible evidence of devaluation, and it's not really a thing that council can take into consideration when assessing the application. And it's the same with EME, because we have to comply with the Australian standards. Carriers don't make it up, they have to comply. It's that simple, and they're always below. And I think really it was well summed up in the council report. In particular, when the key issues on page 322, where it was stated that, look, officers note there is some visual impact. It's inevitable with these facilities. It happens with any form of development, mostly. However, in this instance, it's certainly not affecting a heritage place, a significant view. And lastly, also, there was also these facilities are part and parcel of everyday life. People accept them. They want them. It's just the way we live now. So, in conclusion, that's basically all I've got. If there's any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman's first.
So I was a bit confused whether you're a resident
No, sorry.
or not. When
No,
you
no.
pronounced Beachborough, I thought you weren't. So you're representing the applicant.
Sorry, I should have made that clear. Yes, so I'm
Okay.
Clinton Northey. I'm from Ventia. We represent Telstra in this instance here. Sorry.
Councillor Catalano.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, there have been quite a few submissions in opposition to this.
Yes.
And that's from people who are going to be living close to this tower. So, first question is, who owns the land? Is that Telstra?
It's a Telstra exchange. It's been a Telstra exchange.
And Telstra own the land?
They certainly do.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the locations in, let's say, Beachborough, Bennett Springs, Caversham, Dayton, in that area along like Reed
Yep.
Highway there? Could this tower be located other than smack bang in the middle of a residential suburb?
Well, the point of it is you need to be where the service area is required. In this instance, it is there. So the central locality to service Beachborough efficiently and properly, we need it in that very close by.
All right, so perhaps you could explain why is it that not every suburb in Perth has a mast right in the middle of it? If that's the case, why Beachborough has a mast?
You'd find not every because there's a lot of
Yeah.
rooftop. A lot of places you'll find a rooftop, so you can get the height. We'd always look for a rooftop if we could find it with sufficient coverage. Here you're looking at 1 and 2 story buildings, no more.
So you're saying that there are towers like this in the middle of every suburb in Perth, so that's the reason. That's how people get.
Well, you need look. There's
No, but
there's literally towers everywhere. When
I
I
just
say
haven't
everywhere,
noticed
there's
them
in many
in the
many
middle of
areas.
suburbs. Okay, all right.
And it's
Okay.
looking to provide coverage. You're not going to get coverage. You need that height in a lot of instances. Sometimes if you've got the buildings or we've got structures where you can put it on, then we utilise them, yes.
Can you think of an example where we've got one like this, that Telstra's got another one like this and in this particular kind of location? Can you think of one instance that I can go and check it out?
In the city of Swan, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
What
I can get
about
back
in
to
another
you.
suburb?
I can get back to you with that, yeah.
Oh, you can't think of any right now? Okay.
Not right now, look.
Well,
there's-
actually, I'd really
there-
like to have that information, thank you. Yeah, that'd be very excellent if you could do that before the weekend so I can go and check out these.
Look, they're in residential areas. They're all over the place in
No,
residential
but
areas, yeah.
I'd like to check, I'd like to see what the impact might be by going along to another site that's the same as this, where it's a tower in the middle of a residential area, not a tower on the edge, not a tower sort of in a block, out of the way.
On a industrial or commercial
No,
area.
this is in the middle
Yeah, I
of
know
a
exactly.
residential area. So if you could provide me with that, then I can go and have a look and then I can satisfy myself that this is not going to have a negative impact on the visual or otherwise amenity of the people of that area. I'm talking about Beachborough. So if you could do that, it'd be fantastic. And then the other thing is, does Telstra own any other land on the periphery of Beachborough that might be suitable for this?
Not to my knowledge. I could.
Would you be able to check that one
could
out
check
as
that
well? And could you provide me with that information as well?
There are other Telstra sites in the area.
Yeah, could you
They're on
provide
the
me
other
with
side of
those?
the highway or near the highway.
Great.
But they don't provide coverage to this area.
Right, okay.
So we
then.
always, like, if the Telstra equipment's there, why would we put another facility there? You'd have to, it's the infill, because there is a coverage hole in Beachborough. And there were submissions actually in favour of it as well. There was a lot against it. There usually is.
Well, there's no, one thing for sure is there's a big need for it.
Yes.
But at the same time, people their visual amenity and otherwise is going to be affected by it. So it isn't simple in this instance. So that's why I'm asking those questions. Just getting back to alternative sites. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know if Telstra has got any alternatives.
No, there is. We have explored other. The planning report does detail them. I actually should have them on me now.
Yeah.
I don't. It's definitely in the council reports.
Yeah.
We've looked at 5 sites in total. I think it was 4 or 5 sites.
Yeah.
It's not actually specified in the agenda, but in the actual report that went to council.
Okay. I didn't see that. So
I can easily provide you.
That'd be great. Thanks. And the other thing is, I was a bit confused as to why you had so much information about plant species and bird species. What does that?
We always do an EPBC check.
So
it's part of the
that's not really all that
it's part of the
relevant
due
in
diligence,
this case, because
in this case, it's probably
no.
not.
All right. So yeah. Okay. A bit more information about alternative sites and also about another site that you know of in the metro area that's, is impacted in this way.
Yep.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Henderson.
Thanks very much. Perhaps so that councillors can understand, you could briefly outline the honeycomb effect of placement of towers and perhaps the fact that we demand much higher data frequencies and we're operating at higher frequencies and line of sight and closer and smaller power grids that are being constructed. So just to give some reasoning around the placement and the need for these kind of placements.
All right. So look, I'm not a radio frequency engineer, but when the carriers first look at an area, it'll be, and Stuart might be able to help me out, or I don't know if you want to, but we're given it, there's a target area. So generally what will happen is they know where our coverage is poor. There's customer complaints, all kinds of things, right? So we will look at an area that we're given a specific area in which to look at. And then we look at height. So I'm a town planner. We've also got property and we've got engineers who design the facilities as well. So we'll go into the area and we'll look at what best can provide it. Is it a rooftop? Can it be provided on a rooftop? Can it be provided purely by a tower? So there is a height. So it's a balance between height, how far we actually need to cover. So this is really central because Beach Borough itself has a huge hole, particularly in the centre there. So that's why it's not just a dartboard approach. There is considered measures in looking at an area. I believe there is definitely concern there. I know people have written and spoken about the issues there. Beach Borough itself. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah.
Is it okay if I answer? Sorry.
If you can assist the question, yes, please.
Yeah. So we're talking about line of sight. We're talking about how big these cells are. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry. So the cell sizes are not big. You can see a tower, but it only projects a few kilometres. So it's for capacity wise. So just say, for instance, you are Beach Borough. You've got no, capacity. You're pulling from other local sites. You're dragging the capacity down there. So what our aim is to put a site in the middle of where something is required and provide that capacity and coverage for that area to free up the network. Otherwise, you'll have network jams, things like that, and reducing speed. Height-wise, it's a line of sight. You can put an antenna here. Signals get reflected back very easily. It's low power. It's not high power. So that's why we go with 25, 30 metres, something like that, to try and project a bubble to cover the areas that are required. Things like trees and all that reflects signal back. It's not, as I said, it's not high power. So when we are sourcing a site and when we're looking for new candidates, we try and get in the centre where it's required. And then we adjust other sites accordingly to bring this site into network to free up capacity. So hopefully that answers. Becca, thank you.
Councillor Catalano, you had a further question?
Yes, thank you. What's the area then that this signal is going to cover?
Yeah, it's going to cover Beachborough. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
sorry,
what's
it's going to.
Can you give us a amount of area?
So it'll cover up to the top of Reed Highway. So that's what, and we're looking to Beachborough Road. We're looking to Lord Street and coming back to Bennett Springs below that. So it's just a small bubble. That's what we're looking to cover.
Reed Highway.
Yeah, so Reed
Lord
Highway.
Street.
So looking north of the site, you'll have Reed Highway.
Yep.
You'll have Beachborough Road.
Yeah.
You'll have Lord Street.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what's south.
Benara Road.
Benara Road, yeah. So we're aiming for that little middle bit there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so, I mean, how big is the shortage in that area then?
There's no coverage in the area.
No
So-
coverage in the area.
No, there is,
Okay.
There is a site that's further on the other side of Tonkin Highway, where Reed Highway is. And that is at capacity at the moment, trying to serve the Beachborough area. So it's on the other side of Tonkin.
Okay.
In Malaga, if you want to say Malaga area.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. So,
All right. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Any other questions, councillors? Then I thank you for your attendance, your deputation, answering questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to the next item. It's in Part C, councillors. It's item C 1.2. Councillor Johnson's revocation motion on the Midland Oval redevelopment. And the first in-person deputation is Mr. Patrick Irwin. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. You have 5 minutes and I'll try to give you a minute's warning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, a question for you. What legacy do you wish to leave in Midland? Do you want to be remembered for leaving City of Swan with debt of up to 200 million or more, and for removing over half the pitiful amount of public open space in Midland? Currently, with the original Midland Oval was 1.6%, would be after the MORM down to 0.6% compared to the 10% required in livable neighbourhoods. Does this council want to be remembered for leaving Midland without a central park sufficient for major events, with huge debts, but no central park sufficient for recreation and relaxation? Or does this council want to create Midland's Big Green Heart, a central park offering value capture to attract adjacent quality development around it? One way is a win-win-win, a triple bottom line with positive financial, environmental and social outcomes. The other is a triple bottom line fail with negative financial, negative environmental and negative social outcomes. Good urban design must consider the whole picture, including value capture. As the community has been telling the same story to you for over 30 years, the community and potential developers both value Midland's only significant park as public open space because it offers value capture. Consider Park Lane in New York, extremely high land value adjacent Central Park. Consider Macquarie Street in Sydney, very high land value adjacent Hyde Park. Now, in Sydney's case, you've not only got Hyde Park, you've got the Domain and the Botanic Gardens stretching down to the hub, but I'll move on. We must have a genuine review. What we need is a genuine, considered redevelopment of the Recreation Ground Reserve. Dr. Lindley Lutton, pro bono, WA urbanist, pro bono, generously reviewed the MORM not long before his death. And he, in summary, in his opinion, the proposed development on Midland Oval, he's referring to the MORM, fails to reflect context, has unachievable development aspirations, is too dense, proposes buildings which are too high for the character of the town and will cause serious overshadowing, and lacks sufficient public open space to support the number of residents proposed for the precinct and those living nearby. He finishes, the plan is fundamentally flawed, and trying to resolve these problems with minor replanning is not possible. The most significant risk to the community is that the authorities proposing the plan will be blind to its inappropriateness and continue on to rezone the land, as is imminent if we're not careful. Councillors, you've been warned. Mr. Howard Dawson has warned you in the past that the financials are unsound. The sunset clause was unanimously imposed because council recognised the same thing. You are not achieving the financial outcomes after 5 years. Dr. Lindy Lutton has advised the POS is insufficient and that the MORM fails to reflect context. Dr. Lutton commented on the MORM, "It is difficult to comprehend the psyche which puts such little importance on public open space. It is time council takes responsibility and makes evidence-based decisions."
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
The evidence is stacked clearly on this matter. It is time for you to take an evidence-based approach. There's no point remaining in denial because of some ideological program agenda that was put in place some 30 or 40 years ago and thinking that it's all still going to come true. It is not. We now know things have changed. We now know the climate emergency is a real thing. We now know we really do need parks and gardens. We know that that's what the rates are there. We're not selling our parks to create return on rates. Our parks are an essential part of what local government is here to provide. Faith in a cargo cult is delusory. It is time. It's time to accept evidence and act with responsibility to the community and to the whole city. Stop wasting our money and removing our prime assets.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Any questions, councillors? No questions, then I'll call on the next speaker, Miss Diane Avino. Thank you. Once again, Diane, you have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay. Mine's short. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, CEO and councillors. I'm speaking in support of the revocation motion to allow a comprehensive briefing of option 5. On speaking to some councillors, I have found that some are saying it has been considered and others are saying it was ignored at the workshops, which were suspended without notice and not presented to councillors. So it seems a briefing is required to satisfy all councillors. There can only be benefits. It will show a council with integrity and transparency, willing to get the best possible outcome for ratepayers and ensure fellow councillors are satisfied they have explored all the information given to them to make an informed decision. Ratepayers want to see a more financially viable plan that provides a better balance between development and public open space, as in the end, they will continue to be paying for this project through their rates, which already are higher than many other suburbs, including those closer to the coast. There is an option that gives a further 8,000 plus square metres of public open space, plus millions of dollars in savings, and ratepayers deserve to have this option explored properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Then I'll ask the next speaker, and that's Miss Amanda Dawn. Thank you. Once again, Amanda, you have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. As a recent candidate in the Altone Ward by-election, I would first like to congratulate Councillor Singh on his success. I'm here to speak in favour of Councillor Johnson's MORM revocation motion. Councillor Bowman at the last meeting said he had an alternative option for the MORM that could save $25 million, money that could be used in other suburbs in the city of Swan. This is surely something that must be explored. One thing I learned while door knocking extensively around Altone is that many people in the Altone suburbs feel that although they pay high rates, they are not getting the basic services and amenity they expect. In the back streets of the suburbs, I saw unmown verges, streets without trees, neglected parks, overgrown grass, and much litter surrounding bus stops with no shelters, unshaded playgrounds, cracked footpaths, potholes, and plenty of graffiti. It made me quite sad. These are the basics people want their council to attend to. The people of Altone do not care about a development on Midland Oval. It doesn't matter what you put on it, they are not likely to go there. Saving Kiara bushland is what is important to those residents. The skate park in Beachborough is not up to standard. Why are our youth still having to wait so long to get it refurbished? Dayton wants the existing dog park to be improved so their dogs can actually use it. Lockridge has so much potential, but it's forgotten and neglected. Activating events for local residents at Lockridge Parks, in Lockridge Parks with food vans, artisan stalls and music, inclusion to bring all cultures from every community together. Why can't we lift Lockridge and inspire the people? I have to say that people I met highly praised Councillor Jennifer Catalano's efforts on their behalf, but they realise she is a part of a minority on this council. We need to save money, so why not start with the multi-millions being spent on Midland Oval? Please don't ask me any details of the financials, because remember, you have voted to keep 9 years of financial records on the MORM confidential. But Councillor Bowman has said at least $25 million can be saved, so let's do that. This is what your constituents want. Saying the MORM is taking too long and let's just get on with it is not good enough. Ratepayers would rather you took longer and ensured the MORM was financially viable than just burden us with a plan that doesn't add up. Last year, you invoked the sunset clause on the MORM business plan because it hadn't delivered. Last month, you decided to go ahead with it anyway. There is no consistency on this council, shrouded in financial secrecy. Who benefits from the Midland Oval redevelopment? Certainly not the ratepayers I met in the Altone ward and those who live in other parts of the city of Swan. You not only have a duty to developers, you have a duty to your ordinary ratepayers. Please support the revocation motion and work together to come up with a more financially viable option. The City of Swan's reputation is suffering as a result of your unwillingness to move on this issue. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Then I'll call the next person to speak, Mr. James Pollard. Thank you. Once again, Mr. Pollard, you have 5 minutes, and I'll try and tell you when you have 1 minute left.
Lucky last. Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Well, I oppose the motion to revoke the council decision to proceed with the MORM as voted for on the 2nd of November 2022. Midland needs this development. The MORM is now one of a number of developments in the city of Swan that promises to bring vitality and opportunity to the residents of the city. The proposal to locate a film studio in Whiteman Park promises to raise the profile of the city of Swan and signals a new chapter in its history. The honorary John Kerry, member of the Legislative Assembly, Minister for Housing, Lands, Homelessness and Local Government, has recently announced a project at the Midland Railway Workshops. The new Midland Health and Knowledge Precinct and a new hotel promises to transfer Midland into a dynamic, world-class health precinct that will attract the best and the brightest. I understand that this will bring positive growth to the area and will add to the already existing facilities at St John of God Hospital in Midland that I hear is looking at growth and will actively be recruiting staff from overseas. Of course, the new train station and bus station announced as part of Metronet will enhance access to the precinct, catering to an influx of people as a result of new job opportunities and advancing healthcare facilities. Planned road infrastructure development will also work in tandem with the enhanced public transport, bringing more people to the area. I've personally engaged with a number of people who have made the decision to move to the Midland area to avail themselves of some of the new opportunities, and I believe this is only the beginning. There is no doubt that the area is growing and moving forward. All around in Bellevue, with the old sale yards, Midvale, and other areas around the city of Swan, all except for the Midland Oval. This project, right in the middle of everything, is stalled. It's distressing to see this part of Midland languishing despite plans to revitalise the area with first-class development aimed at extending the retail, commercial and civil functionality of the heart of Midland. linking other projects and providing the amenity and accommodation needed to cope with the predicted incoming population of new residents. The Morm was going to grow that potential by bringing in the only thing that was still missing in this specific area: people, and people who would stay. This infill development plan that is the Morm would bring people to live and frequent the retail and other small business around the heart of Midland. Using and enhancing the mainly existing infrastructure, the plan can expand home ownership, allow for mixed-use development, and increase government revenue, allowing for bigger scale development, delivering better housing, amenity and public transport options for the old and the young alike. The area would become an attractive place to live and visit. Unfortunately, none of that has yet happened due to the delays to the implementation of the Morm. And one of the biggest casualties of recent times is small business. As a long-time resident of the area, I've seen businesses come and I've seen businesses go all too frequently. This applies to the Great Eastern Highway end of the commercial part of Midland, and of course the old heart of Midland around Helena Street and the old Northern Highway and that post office end of the Crescent. That also applies equally to the area of the Crescent near Cale Street. I've never seen so many businesses failing, and I believe the Morm can fix this. Small business is a way of life for many in Midland, be it a hairdresser, a cafe, computer repairs, maintenance, mattress sales, electronics, cars, tools, tiles, paint, you name it. The list just keeps going on and on and on. It's been a way of life in Midland, and we have come to expect them to be there. They pay their way in order to trade, and they contribute significantly to the coffers of the city of Swan, the livelihood of the area and the culture and lifestyle of Midland itself. But they need the Morm and the people it will bring and the lift it will provide to the area in general in order to survive. From what I understand, they are struggling. If we lose them, I believe we lose Midland. With plans to extend Cale Street, create more housing and develop the area to improve retail opportunity and the general amenity of the new station being built at the end of it, the street must have seemed like a great place to invest when the Morm was first proposed. There was a buzz in the street for a while, but the delays have had a dramatic effect on the area.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
You just need to have a stroll down Cale Street and nearby to see the demise of the area. It's going backwards. Storefronts are boarded up. The buzz has gone. But we have the Morm. It can all be resurrected. It's ready to go now. The council have voted to proceed 3 times, I believe, and it should and will be implemented. Councillors, don't let this revocation motion go to a vote. Don't allow a vote that will don't allow a vote that will stop the rescue of Midland from the depths of this depression. Let reason prevail. You know it's a good thing and you know it will work. This is the time to step up and vote for Midland and the people and the businesses in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Catalano first.
Thank you. Okay. How can another commercial area be justified when already the commercial area in Midland is basically dead and boarded up?
I don't understand why you're asking me that.
I just wondered if you had any ideas about that. Like,
well,
you know,
yes,
if you've got an old town centre like we have.
My answer would be yes, the Morm.
But how is the Morm going to encourage the old town centre?
I thought I just answered that.
No, but how in your mind do you think that will happen?
Well, I think I just answered that. I gave you my deputation. I think probably you should be listening to that. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. You don't want to answer, that's fine. So, so I just wondered, you're a Swan ratepayer, City of Swan ratepayer?
Is that a relevant question, Mr. Mayor?
You can answer it or not.
I've done it. I've presented myself many times, and you should know that by now. Sorry.
So you're a City of Swan ratepayer or not?
Well, I don't see the relevance of that question.
I was just wondering, as a City of Swan ratepayer, wouldn't you like to see a project that actually costs ratepayers actually less money?
Again, how is that relevant to my deputation?
Well, it's just a question to you about.
Well, it's got to be relevant to what I've said.
Okay, that's fine.
I am a ratepayer, by the way.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks. So, but surely then, as a ratepayer, you'd be happy to see a plan that actually would offer savings to ratepayers like yourself, like myself, like all of us, some of us.
So that's a statement.
No, I mean, surely you'd like to see your rates not impacted by or reduced perhaps, or if this plan was reduced in cost, wouldn't that actually be good because it might impact less on ratepayers? And as a ratepayer, wouldn't that be a good thing?
I suppose it's a hypothetical question. My view is that, and my understanding of the Moore, and believe I'm not an expert in this area, I'm just a ratepayer making a deputation. I think that probably councillors and probably yourself would be more across the issues than I am and be privy to more detail. But I believe, from what I understand of the plan, cost savings can be made within the existing Moore in any case.
Oh, well, it's just that we have.
So the answer to your question would be notionally, yeah.
Yeah, you'd like to see a plan that costs less.
Well, I think
Great.
we've got one that can cost less, and I think it's a good one.
So you would like to see a plan that costs less than what we've got?
Not specifically, no. I don't think that was.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't even think it was a question.
okay.
I think it was a statement. But I'd like to see the Moore go ahead, and within that,
yeah,
there is capacity for it to save money.
Thanks.
But
okay.
Yeah.
And with the idea of the high density, which seems a very
good
to
idea.
me seems like a good idea. Yeah. And the thing is though, don't you think that people who go in, who would be inclined to live in high density, like we're talking apartments effectively, don't you think that they would be attracted to an area if there was actually a large area of green public open space, and that would make it actually much more viable for them, or much more attractive for them to live in that area?
I think you're leading me to an answer that you want to hear. If you want me to say it'd be better to have more
you
open
might
space,
not
aren't you?
agree with that.
Yeah.
You might not agree with it. That's what I was
Well, I
asking
don't agree nor disagree, and I can't really comment on what people really think, their opinions. So, but I believe that the Moore, as it is, would attract people to the area.
All right. Well, what about if I ask you then? Would you be happy to live in an apartment block that actually didn't have any green public open space, large public open space around it, and you were sharing that public open space with thousands of others?
Well, the way you put the question is hypothetical, and it's quite negative.
I just wanted
And
to
if you're
ask
referring to the Moore and the apartments in that Moore, there is public open space. So I really don't understand why you're asking me that question.
Well, I just think. Do you think you think that it should be a small amount of public open space, or more public open space when you're talking about high rises and
Well, I
thousands
think
of
the
people?
question's settled. It was all done, voted for. You got more public open space. That was back in 2018. I think it's, and many people think, and the council thinks it's an appropriate amount of space. I really can't comment more on that. I'm just all about getting the Moore moving in order to benefit the area and the people of Midland, the businesses behind that, the people in the area. I've really got not much more I can comment. I can't give you more of my opinion in that area.
No worries, thanks.
Councillor Johnson, have you got any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Pollard, thanks for commenting along. I just want to ask a question about an email that you sent us.
Hang on. How's that relevant?
Oh, it's to do with the financial arrangements.
But shouldn't you be asking me questions about the deputation I've just given?
I am, but
Mr. Neris,
Councillor Johnson, if you can ask questions about the deputation.
I'm asking a relevant question, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's not relevant. It's about an email, I think.
Do you know it's not relevant until you've heard it?
Relevance, Your Honour.
You can ask the question, Councillor Johnson. It's up to Mr.
Okay.
Pollard whether he answers it or not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bet you it's a sneaky one.
So what you said is that now members of the public, who rightly so, do not have access to the financials. What I want to know is, if we've got 9 years of financial reports being cash flow, balance sheet, profit and loss, put together by a chartered accountant to Australian accounting standards, why do you think those should not be available to the public?
That's got nothing to do with what I was just talking about tonight. It's totally irrelevant. I don't even think
you
I
got another
mentioned
question,
accounting
Councillor
standards in an
Johnson?
email. I don't know where you're going with that.
Okay.
Sorry, I do apologise, Mr. Johnson, but I don't think
Understand,
that was
understand
relevant.
that you don't understand. That's very
Well,
interesting.
I
sir.
understand it. I don't understand why. I don't think you understand.
Have you got another question? Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So you said in your deputation, let reason prevail. Now, would you not want to see this council continue a series of workshops designed to optimise the business case for the MORM to reduce the impact on ratepayers? And would you not want us to follow the process, which is in?
Oh, you've got your book.
This document here. So this is the Harvard Business Review Guide to Building Your Business Case. So this is the process we're following. So would you not want us to follow that?
Have you ever been to Harvard?
I don't think that's a relevant question. No, I've not. It's not. I've not.
Thank you.
I've not. But I've read the book.
To be fair, I think I did answer that question with Councillor Catalano was grilling me. So I think that's question asked and answered.
You got any other questions, Councillor Johnson?
I think they'd be answered,
And
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Richardson?
Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. I too received your email a few weeks ago.
Thank you.
I've had approximately 8 emails against, so for the MORM, and more than, 30 or 40 emails, against the MORM, and yours was in support. I know that you ran a few election ago or two. I'm just wondering what your interest in the MORM is. It's only is that your emails just popped up recently, and I've yet not seen you speak on the MORM or have any interaction, I suppose, with myself necessarily, or any meetings regarding your interest in the MORM, what it suddenly generated.
Do you think like as if it just popped out of nowhere? Okay, look, I'll be respectful, and I have done quite a few deputations, or I've asked questions, I've made public statements, and I've sent emails, and I think on many occasions I've said my interest is Midland and the people of Midland. I don't think I really need to elaborate on that.
That's right. Are you a member of the Swan Chamber?
And again, relevance.
I'm just asking. You're entitled to answer or not answer. It's entirely up to
True,
you.
but I feel like you're looking at my.
I'm just wondering that this seems to come from a business proposal. I'm just wondering if that's more of the interest side that you might have for the development, or.
I'm all about Midland.
Okay. So my next question is: you mentioned in your deputation that you talked about St John of God Hospital and that they were possibly doing a drive looking for overseas nurses.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering where you got that information from, as I work at the hospital and I engage quite frequently with executive staff. I'm not aware of a current drive at the moment. Did you have?
I think from memory, I got that from the news. It could have been a Facebook feed, or
when
it
was
could
that?
have. Well, the news I watch it every day. I don't know specifically the date.
I'm actually on their pages and I don't recall
Or
any
maybe
drive.
we watch different channels, but
Rather than being,
I think it's
And then the next
another
question
grilling.
is, I'm just wondering what your
Councillor Richardson, can you move on to your next question?
my next question is,
Into arguments.
how
Thank
do you believe that the MORM will assist nursing staff then, because that was in relation to your deputation, doctors and nurses, physios, speech staff, cleaners, etc. How do you believe that will assist them with their young families?
Why does it
How
have to
is
be
the-
specifically the young
You
families?
referred to St John of God Hospital doing a drive for recruiting staff overseas and telling us that the MORM would be a great thing because the hospital's looking at recruiting staff from overseas. How would that benefit those young families with children? How is that over a
the families
7 day
with children.
period
Yep.
during the week and the weekends going to benefit those families
Sure. Okay.
who might move into the area?
Amenity and places to live.
Just
Well, there's a good start. I don't think that's a just. I think that's a very.
Okay.
Those two are
How
very
many-
big ticket items.
I'm interested in how many St John of God Hospital staff you actually may know.
I
because
don't work there.
So I can pretty well state that I speak to most of the staff quite often around the hospital, that I don't actually know any nurses who live in Midland or doctors who live in Midland or with children.
That's because there's no way to live. That's why we want them all.
No.
Councillor Richardson, have you finished your questions? Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Knight.
Just one. Thanks, James. I just got one question for you as a ratepayer. Are you happy that we have 9 years where where reports are withheld about the finances? Are you happy? Is it a condition of your support for the WARM? Are you happy with that? Well, it's a loaded question. I mean, happy. Why would I be sad, happy, and express emotions? It's your money. It's your money being spent. So, yeah, I'm happy for the city of Swan to spend my rates on good projects. And you know nothing about it, and we know nothing about it. I know. Well, I think we know a fair amount.
I think you're starting to
answer them. Yeah. Well, I'm just making a point. I'm an elected,
Yes, you've asked the question. It's been answered. If you've got another question, please ask it. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, James, for your deputation tonight. Mine's just in relation to the sunset clause that you referred to in your deputation.
Good old sunset
So,
clause.
I guess my question really is, I suppose you know why the council unanimously voted to support the sunset clause.
Well, I don't know everything. I'm not privy to everything that happens.
That's
at
okay.
council.
That's okay. I just printed it off out of the minutes from
I'm not a council.
from the website. I think everyone can access that. But anyway, it says basically my question really relates to nothing's really changed since this sunset clause was enacted, and we sort of went away and had workshop discussions.
Well,
and it was enacted.
Doesn't have to.
No, sorry. My point was that it was enacted. We voted for it as a council because it says that in the event the council resolves to proceed with the construction of public works, it will need to have achieved appropriate funding through prior sales or revenue in the first instance. So that was the sort of clincher that triggered the sunset clause. So seeing that nothing's really changed, it's been on hold, everything's been on hold. My question is, what do you see that's changed or would make the redevelopment attractive to developers now, considering it wasn't attractive for the 4 or 5 years prior to it, which caused that to be triggered, and nothing's happened or changed. So why would it now, do you think, if we were to, if the rescission motion or the revocation didn't succeed, how do you see the MORM going forward successfully when it wasn't previously and nothing's changed?
I'm happy to answer the question, but remember, I'm just a ratepayer. So, I mean, you've got more influence over this than I have.
Just your opinion, that's all, 'cause you're quite excited.
And anything I say is purely my opinion, based on the evidence before me, which is not as much as you have. I think the main issue a couple of years back has been COVID. So obviously it's been hard to buy and sell property. I don't see that property has diminished. It's in Perth. There's still plenty of potential for sales of property, and I think the potential's still there for the financial viability of the MORM moving forward. So that's why I support the motion for it to go forward now. I think now's the time. What more can I say? Revocation, the sunset clause. I understood that was about reviewing the financial arrangements of the funding, and from what I know about what went on at your famous workshop was that basically you just considered other plans, not necessarily the finance of it. So, I mean, we were in your hands, and you as ratepayers, and I think as councils, you failed us. I think that whole idea is dead in the water, and it's finished. And I understand from what I hear from this public perspective that process is over. I don't know why you continue with it. In any case, it's time to move on with the MORM, I think. Everything's been discussed. It's been voted to go ahead 3 times now. You've had 4 years to do it, and we've voted again to go forward. Please don't stop it. Please don't let this motion go forward. Don't vote to revoke the motion.
I think you've answered the question, Mr. Pollard. You finished, Councillor Howard?
Yeah, I suppose that I feel sorry that you feel that the workshops, you feel let down as a ratepayer with the workshops.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Howard, if you have a question, you don't have to show your sympathy or sorrow for Mr.
Oh, I
Pollard.
was leading into the question, actually, Mr. Mayor.
If you have a question,
Mr. Mayor, this is questions of the deputy. I'm hearing a lot. I've been very patient. I'm hearing a lot of personal views posed as questions. Can I please ask through you, if councillors are going to ask a question, they get to the question, they get the direct question, and we ask the deputy to provide a direct response, or otherwise I believe we're finished with this.
Thank you.
I can't agree more.
I agree, Councillor Johnson. I've tried to be very lenient. Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. Are you confident that your elected councillors and staff have the expertise to develop the new junction project in the best interest of the ratepayers?
About 8 of them, yes.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pollard, for your attendance, your deputation, and answering those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. You've got a question of staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My questions really relate to the get on with it issue. We've currently got a very respectable developer who's done a great job putting up the Catalyst building. I just want to ask, is it correct that he owns 2 other blocks of land on either side of the Catalyst building? I know Mr. Leon van der Linde isn't here, so I guess it's directed to Mr. Humphries.
And if you're not sure, Ian, you can take it on notice and get back to Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I'd have to take that on notice as to whether or not he physically owns those properties.
And I guess the question that maybe Mr. Russell can answer is there a development consent for either of those blocks of land?
No, just for clarity, Mr. Mayor, I think we'd all like to hear the answers. Yes, the 2 lots are subject of the right of refusal, the adjoining land. And
Any other questions, Councillor Johnson?
No. I guess the question. That's.
Thank you. Then I thank everyone for their participation. You also note, councillors, there are 3 written deputations on the same item by Marilena Stempfel and Stuart and Melinda Brackley. That takes us to item 6.3. I note that the time is now 8:26. I'll ask councillors, do you want to go through the matrix or do you want to have a 10-minute break? So, no one wants to take a break? Okay, we'll go through the matrix, and I'll start on item 13.1, commercial lease, Old Great Northern Highway. Councillor Bowman.
I've got questions, Mr. Mayor, but I believe it's a confidential item.
Thank you.
So can we do that at the end?
Well, you can. Thank you. Or you can ask the staff during the week, or we all need to hear the questions and the answers.
I've asked the staff, so I think we need to be aware of the questions.
Thank you. 1313, proposed demolition of house and removal at 7 Fauntleroy Street. Councillor Johnson.
Alternate motion, Mr. Mayor.
And any idea what the alternate will be?
Not at this stage.
Thank you. 2.1, Councillor Bowman. I see you've already indicated something on that.
I have, Mr. Mayor, there'll be amendment to the policy, taking out agenda forums, council briefings, and only limiting it to what's required under the Act. And
3.1, I see Councillor Podovnik, and you mentioned earlier you're moving a deferral, Councillor Podovnik. Thank you. Item 3.2, arts in Allenbrook. Item 3.3, Swan Community Funding Scheme. Supplementary items, I know you've only received them tonight. Councillor Bowman.
Mr. Mayor, can we have some more information regarding this one? In particular, what do other large local governments do? It seems quite expensive at $30 a head for food, and I believe here was an option that was considered, which was alcohol. Do any other local governments on their normal citizenship provide alcohol as well?
Thank you. I think the recommendation from the committee was to continue but have no alcohol. Yes, so you should have been given the reports today. They might have been emailed to you today.
Mr. Mayor, I've quickly read the reports, but it doesn't tell me about
other local governments, whether
Okay,
they
well,
provide alcohol
we'll
at their ordinary citizenship
We'll
ceremonies.
get that information to all councillors. Thank you, Ms Pickering.
And the other question was, how do we compare the cost of catering at different amounts I've seen in here, but on average $30 a head, compared to other local governments that provide catering for their citizenship ceremonies as well, please?
Thank you. I dare say that's also going to be dependent on whether other local governments have in-house kitchens and staff, or they have to get external caterers in. But I'm sure we'll get the information to all councillors.
Mayor, I have a question.
Question, councillor.
On that item of the ceremony venues.
Yes.
In relation to the alcohol, it was my understanding that we haven't served alcohol at our citizenship ceremony since we closed the town hall for repairs and then moved around the burbs and then came back here. I've not seen one bottle of alcohol, I've only seen soft drink and water. So I don't know where the alcohol stock came from. And was the charge fees that we were indicated, did that include alcohol moving forward all through the times we haven't had alcohol? Did we pay for alcohol?
I can't answer that.
Question.
No, staff can follow up, and the reason I can't answer it is I don't drink the alcohol, so it's never
Never been down the bank, Mr Mayor, since we returned to the town hall.
Thank you. Item 4.1, the RA report, Farrell Road, Morrison Road, Midvale. Item 4.2, the RA report, Industrial Warehouse, Talbot Road, Hazelmere. Councillor Catalano, do you know what you want to do? Uh, 4.3, the RA report proposed, you're withdrawing that one as well. And once again, do you know what you want to do? Item 4.4, the SAT reconsideration of signage in James Street, Guildford. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Richardson, can you work together on that?
Yeah, mine's an alternate motion to support the sign.
Thank you. Item 4.5, single house and establishment, dog kennel, Seaforth Road, Bullsbrook. I see Councillor Bowman and McCulloch, perhaps as ward members, you can work together on that item.
Yeah, mine will be approval with a few slight changes to conditions. Okay, we'll work together.
Thank you. Item 4.6, proposed, you're withdrawing that one, Councillor Congdon.
Couple of them.
Item 4.7, proposed telecommunications infrastructure, Sacramento Ave, Beachborough. You know what you want to do, Councillor Catalano? Thank you. 5.1, proposed permanent road closure, portions of Pine Street, Henley Brook. 5.2, Brabham District Community Centre.
They're going to provide us more information, so I'll leave it. I'll withdraw it. Because they're going to provide more information.
Are you talking about 4.7 now? Yeah, 5.2, the Brabham District Community Centre.
Yeah, they'll provide some more information. Which was that one? 4.6. Oh, right, okay, yeah, sorry.
So 5.2, anyone? Thank you. 5.3, Jack Williamson Oval proposal. Questions, Councillor Bowman? Thank you.
Mr Mayor, the officer's report talks about the need for this because of the orange route and the potential impact of North Swan Park and Jackman Oval. Is that confirmed that one, orange route Eastlink is going ahead? Two, is it confirmed that there will be impacts to those two ovals? And if not, why is that the reason for the inclusion?
Thank you, Mr Coaten.
Well, certainly the planning is underway for Eastlink. Through you, Mr Mayor, and Council have been briefed on that on several occasions. The actual elements of the project that impact on Jackman Oval and North Swan Park aren't scheduled at the moment. They're unfunded, so we're not sure of when they will occur. The concept designs for both locations do indicate that there will be some impact on those ovals. The detailed designs will still be some years away as yet, so we're not sure what those impacts will be. it may be, they'll be, I guess, relatively minor, and we'll be able to continue to use those ovals as playing fields, or they may be more significant, but we don't have the information at this time, and we won't for a number of years, I don't expect.
Mr. Mayor, my next question is, with a $2.1 million plus decision, is there a reason why we haven't been provided more financial information? Again, the capital cost of an item is a small part. The ongoing maintenance cost figures for quite some time are not included. Should that be included, and will we get that included so we can make a fully informed decision?
Mr. Coaten?
Oh, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Bowman did ask those questions a couple of days ago, and answers have been collated and will be circulated, I understand, with some other answers to other questions that he asked as well. And yes, those costs, the ongoing maintenance and depreciation should have been included in the report, and they'll be provided to all councillors as a rough indication based on similar ovals. Would expect a maintenance cost of about $90,000 to $95,000. Depreciation hasn't been worked out exactly. It's a little bit more difficult to do so. But so there's a number of assumptions and things like that that can be made to give a bit of an estimate of what depreciation should be. But that information will be circulated to all councillors in the next day or two.
Mr. Mayor, my understanding, I couldn't find it anywhere on any future plans. This oval is not listed. Do we have a habit of bringing forward projects that aren't listed on our future projects, 10-year plans, any of those, when we don't actually, we can't even do all those on the list?
Mr. Coaten?
Well, I'll steer clear of the question, do we have a habit of bringing forward projects? But I think the thing to emphasise in this particular case, the reason why this one's being presented to council is because the developer has approached the city with an offer to put in a large capital contribution. So that's the reason why this one's coming before council, and staff believe it is appropriate that council be presented with that information and council make a decision on it.
Mr. Mayor, am I right that the developer's not proposing to provide any funds for any ongoing maintenance to 5 or 10 years, and it'll be up to the city?
There hasn't been, there hasn't been any agreement about ongoing maintenance, so it is intended that the city would be responsible for maintenance.
Mr. Mayor, without a structure plan in the area, is there going to be any reduction in public open space to the development area, or is the developer proposing to spend less in their public open space in lieu of spending $2.1 million on this item? Because it sounds to me developers like to make money, not give it away.
Mr. Coaten?
No, this is outside of the subdivisional area. So this is an actual City of Swan reserve at the moment. So it is in addition to any POS in the subdivision.
So there'll be no reduction in the required POS that they are required to provide in their development?
No, it's not intended that there would be.
Thank you.
Councillor Catalano, you are next on this one. Councillor Howlett. Thank you. Do you know what you want to do? Item 5.4, defibrillator audit.
Well done, staff and CEO.
Item 5.5, targeted underground power program. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just a question. When this was brought to council for briefing, I was off sick, so I wasn't able to ask my question at the time. And the question was, if we're looking at Midland and Woodbridge, was there a reason why Guildford was excluded from the targeted underground power program?
Mr. Coaten, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Western Power identified the highest priorities based on their replacement program, and Guildford wasn't specifically mentioned. We did receive your question today, and we have forwarded that question on to Western Power to ask where Guildford sits in terms of the timing. But there wasn't a specific reason why it was included. It was just that these ones are ready to go.
Item 6.1, sorry, Councillor Henderson. So you're going to amend it, or is it a footnote? Or? Thank you. Item 6.1, change in base of valuation. Item 6.2, Shady Hills Second Access Road. Councillor Catalano. You know what you're doing? Thank you. 6.3, 2021 annual report. 6.4, financial management report for period ending 31st of October this year. 6.5, list of accounts paid October 2022. Did your hand go up, Councillor Johnson? No. 7.1, proposed local law bushfire brigades.
Mayor, I've got quite a few odds and sods to look at, and I'd like to discuss those with staff during the week. And if there's any adjustments, I'll bring them up before the meeting.
Thank you. Item 7.2, consolidated amendment local law horse exercise area. 7.3, council committee matters. Councillor Bowman.
Recommendation 2. Doesn't the committee endorse their meeting dates and not council? And if I'm correct, then why is it need a council decision?
I haven't got anyone's name against this one, so I'm just... Is anyone able to answer that question? Everyone's looking at the agenda item, Councillor Bowman. Just give it a few moments.
Just says council endorse the following committee dates. My understanding was that the committee endorses the committee dates, but it's not the council. So therefore, I don't think that section should be in that recommendation.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's my understanding that given that the audit committee is a statutory committee, it has been the city's practice for those dates to come to council.
Well, perhaps we can get it sorted before next Wednesday. So, we'll, yeah. Okay, we'll get it sorted for next Wednesday. Item 8.1, Welga Best Practice Governance Review. No. C1.1, revocation motion on 811. That's a confidential item, so I'll put that to the back. But does anyone want to ask questions later or withdraw it? C1.2, revocation motion, and that'll be dealt with in due course. We move on to item C1.3, Councillor Prodovnik, Wheat Park Playground Equipment. These are notices of motion. C1.4, Councillor.
Question about 1.3.
Councillor Johnson.
I've read the report. Have there been any actual accidents reported?
Mr. Coates, are you aware of any?
I'd have to take that on notice, Mr Mayor.
And how long has the slide been in operation now?
Good couple of years, but
Yeah, it would be a couple of years, but I'll take it on notice in terms of the exact time.
and if you could get back to all councillors if there's been any injuries or accidents.
I just wonder how many councils have tested it.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can we also get company complaints certificate as well?
If we have them, thank you, Councillor Prodovnik.
Just interested as well in a straw poll, Mr. Mayor, on how many councils have tested it.
I've had my grandchildren tested,
Yeah,
three of them.
I've been down it. Didn't come to any harm. Councillor Knight's been down it. Anybody else?
Thank you. Item C1.4, Cassius Turvey Memorial. 1.5, streetscaping in Midland. C1.6, vacant land rate. C3.1, acquisition by, all the rest are confidential. So I think there's questions on one confidential matter. So we need to go, well, we'll make sure the live streaming's off and so we do. Thank you, Councillor. You have a question?
Oh, yes, just thank you. I just, on 3.3, you know, the Swan Community Funding Scheme, do we normally get that every year? It's just, I don't remember it from last year. And will we be getting it again next year? Yeah, off staff, thanks. And will we get this again next year? Because actually it was very helpful.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we've provided it in previous years. Yes, we'll be providing it next year. It's been adopted as part of the policy.
Thank you, councillors. I declare this meeting closed at 8:51. Thank you. Just listen to item like that. Page number